What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. This one's been requested a lot, and obviously other people have done this too, at least in different ways. I didn't just want to make a scenario where Frieza simply turns good because I feel like that kinda goes against the whole point of him, and there's definitely a few ways it could be done, but I'd rather do something a little bit different here. In this scenario, he's going to be good from the start. We're changing his entire backstory, and then some. Today, let's begin What If Frieza Was Good, aka What If Frieza Was Sent to Earth. We start when Frieza's actually born. Now, we could simply say he's just born good, and he's sent to Earth like this, but no. This is the actual Frieza that we do know. Changes are going to come after he's born. There's a reason I'm keeping it this way too. Of course, King Cold's impressed with him, and he's cruel right from birth as well as powerful. This was actually stated before. King Cold quickly wanted to hand over his empire to him, just because of how quickly Frieza displayed all of this. But this time around, someone gets in the way. A character who shouldn't be here normally, and one who's going to change the course of everything. Cooler. Frieza's older brother. In this scenario, of course, he wants to take over Cold's army, but now with Frieza in the way, he can't do that because King Cold wants to hand the power to Frieza. He has to prove himself somehow, or at the very least get Frieza out of the picture. Both would be ideal too. But the thing is, he has to work quick because Frieza's smart. He probably develops pretty quickly too. One day, Cooler takes him along, on a mission of sorts. They're in a random solar system, on the outskirts of it actually. This one's quite secluded, and it's the perfect spot to kill Frieza. That's the whole reason Cooler took him here. Of course, the second Frieza feels like Cooler's up to something, he fights back, but this is why Cooler acted right now. Day by day, just by growing normally, Frieza's growing stronger. Soon enough, Cooler will be surpassed, and the only way to stop that is to stop Frieza. The fight's very short though, and Cooler seemingly ends it pretty effectively. Cooler pierces a beam right through Frieza's head, although he knows that's not going to be enough to kill him. He finishes it off with a powerful blast, saying goodbye to his younger brother. Frieza takes the full force of the blast, and then is launched right into the sun, darting across the solar system, with Cooler leaving him there for dead, returning back to King Cold. Frieza drifts aimlessly through space towards the sun. This solar system was a worthless one that Cooler chose. There's only one planet here with life on it, and even that one is worthless and weak. Cooler knows that he and his brother are resilient, but that should kill him. And no one would even bother to look here for Frieza. By the time they did, well, it would already be too late. And besides, King Cold probably won't care either. This will show Cooler's own cruelty if anything, and he'll have a fine replacement for Frieza. This not only gets rid of Frieza, but it's a way for Cooler to prove himself, killing his own brother. What better way for him to prove to King Cold that he's cruel enough to run that empire? Near death, Frieza continues to drift throughout space. But by chance, he happens to end up on one of the planets in the solar system, pulled by its gravitational forces. He falls out of the sky and lands in a vast ocean. He's already unconscious and now underwater. Of course he's very durable, but after all that, it's a miracle he's still alive. But something pulls him out of the ocean. He's brought back to shore on a nearby island. He landed miles away from Kame House, and Master Roshi happened to notice something fall out of the sky. He was curious as to what it is though. So Turtle went out to go and find what it was, and they see some alien looking thing there. It's a living creature, but it's definitely not something from Earth. It's kind of freaky. In case you couldn't already tell, to do this story, we're going to have to make a lot of things happen that didn't happen. This way it makes it a little bit more interesting and unique. But another thing is we kind of have to assume some things about Frieza. We don't know his actual age, so we wouldn't know when this actually takes place. So we're going to have to make an assumption here. In the flashback section of the Broly movie, we see him take over the same year Broly and Vegeta are born, age 732. We kinda have to stretch our sources here, but a movie guidebook states that King Cold wanted to immediately hand over control of Frieza, stating that he showed the power right at birth, which is what I mentioned before in this video. And based on a guidebook, Frieza is also stated to be a child at this time. Again, we don't really know the specifics of how his species develops and such, so maybe he's just this coherent and smart right from birth, or maybe this took a few years. And this is where the assumption comes in. We could assume that in the Broly movie, Frieza is about 5 years old, born 5 years before Vegeta and age 727. So that at least establishes a starting point for us. And here we'll say right now it's age 728. This fight with Cooler happened 1 year into his life. This feels reasonable, especially because we don't know how Frieza ages, and this is also in line with what vague stuff we know about him. So that at least establishes a starting point for us. That weird gem on his head doesn't scar like flesh, but Roshi notices an imprint in the middle of it where it healed over. When he found Frieza, he was pretty beaten up. He still has no clue of what happened, but something or someone injured Frieza when he fell out of space. Maybe it was just because of him falling out of the sky. But it looked like more than that, and Roshi can't exactly say what it was. Roshi's honestly not too sure what to do here either. I mean, he found a random alien-looking thing that fell out of the sky. Of course he's not going to know what to do. Roshi is surprised to see that he's not dead in the first place. The only thing really working in Frieza's favor is that Roshi assumes that this is some sort of kid. And after finding Frieza, he feels some sort of responsibility to at least help him get back to full health. It does take some time. Healing properly takes a bit for him, and he needs to be rehabilitated too. But still, after all that, Roshi's just surprised that his durability is that high, and he doesn't even know the extent of what happened. Thankfully he's still in one piece, but he's badly injured internally, and he took a blast right through the head. Not that Roshi knows, but he just knows something went through his head. When Frieza eventually comes to, he has no memory of sorts, not even of his name. He's intelligent though, he can speak clearly and formally, but he has no clue of who he is, where he is, or how he got here. We're doing the same thing that happened to Kakarot when he was sent to Earth, in a much different manner, but still similar in how it ends. Roshi wonders if someone tried to kill him, and why that would even be the case. But whatever he asks Frieza, he has no answers for it. He's completely forgotten everything. But Frieza thanks Roshi for his help. He's pretty good-natured too. Unbeknownst to Roshi, this is a symptom of the head trauma. Well, Roshi needs a name for him to at least call him something, so for the time being he gives him a name. We'll have it based on Journey to the West like Goku. And there was one character that I found from it that seems pretty fitting. The White Dragon Horse. The reason I find him fitting is because the White Dragon Horse was once a prince. In short, he was slated to be executed, but was eventually spared and sent to assist another character on their journey. So, you see what I'm getting at with the name. Former royalty, sent to be executed, then spared, and now going to be part of someone else's journey. There's significance to why I chose this character, for reasons you'll see later too. One name that could be used for him is Yulong. Son Goku comes from one of the ways Son Wukong could be read. Now, I'm not going to act like I have any sort of deep understanding of any Chinese dialect, or Japanese for that matter even, since that's how Goku got his name. So I'll instead just use the name how it's said in English, my language. His name will be Yulong, which comes from Yulong, another alias for him meaning Jade Dragon. And the name ends up sticking. Roshi still doesn't really know what to do with him, but he comes to like Yulong, and decides to raise him. Yulong excels as Roshi's student. His power is exceptional, and it's actually somewhat freakish. He needs a lot of time to be brought back to full health and actually fully heal. Roshi doesn't have Senzu beans on deck for him, although it doesn't really seem like he needs them right away. The power that Roshi's seeing right now isn't even his full power. So by the time it seems like Yulong's returned to what seems to be his full health, Roshi gets to see even more of that. And he doesn't even know if this is his limit, because he still has amnesia and everything. Maybe he has some long-lasting effects from whatever happened. Roshi can't know for sure. Roshi wonders how strong he's supposed to be, and why he's even that strong. Also, what if his full potential was limited somehow? It seems like he's slowly regaining his power back, although it's weird to think he had this much to begin with. Roshi still has no clue of his origin, but Yulong learns more about Earth, and thankfully also has a martial artist teacher. Due to him being incredibly smart and already having some great power to start with, Roshi decides to put him as part of the Turtle School. It doesn't take long for him to master martial arts. Only a couple of years. He's already gone through every training Roshi could think of, including Korn's training too at some point. By the day he's growing stronger, smarter, more Earthling-like too. Of course, Yulong could tell that he's not from Earth, but he still doesn't know where he's from. He can't remember anything. The first memory he has is waking up on Roshi's island. Weirdly enough, at some point, Roshi hears that his former student Gohan even found something that landed in the forest. A baby with a monkey tail, with Gohan now taking this kid in. Weird how it worked out like that. Both of them kind of went through something similar. Of course, with Yulong's progress as a martial artist, eventually he enters one of the World Martial Arts tournaments. He first gained notoriety in the 19th World Tournament, a newcomer who easily defeated all of his opponents and won, defeating them with a single blow, but he was still very respectful. He later entered the 20th World Tournament as well. This second win was enough to cement him as a martial arts champ. Of course, a lot of people didn't like him because of the fact that he won so easily, despite how respectful he was as a warrior. Some people were interested in his power, either wanting to train under him or to kill him. But not much ever really came of this. He's not really the teacher type, so it's not like he ever took up any students. Although it does give Master Roshi some more notoriety too, because that's his teacher. Roshi's been holding on to one of the Dragon Balls for a while, and after all his time on Earth, one day Yulong does bring a Dragon Ball back to Roshi. Given his great power and speed, he's traveled basically all over Earth at this point, wanting to learn more about it, and he stumbled across this one day. He only knew it's important because Roshi had one of them. And now they're matching, master and student, both with their own Dragon Ball. Not knowing that Gohan also has one of his own. Although, this brings the Red Ribbon Army towards Kame House one day. They've always seen Yulong as a threat because he's regarded as one of the strongest people in the world. People clearly think he's not human. They don't know what he is. Is he some sort of deity sent down here? Is he just a weird mutated human? Is he an alien? There's all theories going around it. But either way, there's two things the Red Ribbon Army doesn't like. For one, this guy has too much power. And two, they eventually get more info on Dragon Balls. And they can see that two of them are at Kame House, the place where Yulong supposedly lives. So, they go out there to get them. Although it doesn't really go well. They send a bunch of troops there first, and Roshi and Yulong stop them pretty easily. More and more troops are sent out. And then Yulong decides to stop it at the source. He wants to make sure Kame House is a peaceful place. The Red Ribbon Army is known as a threat worldwide too, so he's doing everyone a favor. He seeks out their base, single-handedly defeating the entire army. Word of this spreads around and he becomes an even bigger hero. He wasn't even using his full power for that. He's so accomplished. He's traveled the world. He's mastered many forms of martial arts. He won 2 world tournaments back-to-back. He's known as a world champ and now a hero for defeating the Red Ribbon Army. Although Roshi's not too sure how to feel because it seems like he's getting a bit too comfortable. Yulong's a very nice kid and is pretty charming too, but Roshi's disappointed that he's not training seriously anymore. At some point, after realizing his amazing power, and easily mastering all forms of martial arts that he could learn, Yulong realized that a lot of this is kind of pointless, mainly the pursuit of strength in general. It's not that he's letting it get to his head, rather, he's just getting a little bit lazy about it. Roshi tries to encourage him further because he wants to see what he's truly capable of, but he doesn't really do much, if at all. Plus, it doesn't help that Roshi is out of his league now training him, and the fact that Yulong knows nothing about his heritage. Strangely enough, it's not like he's pursuing fame or fortune either. In this regard, he's also the opposite of Frieza. He likes a simple life, and, of course, just like what happened with Kakarot turning into Goku, he's purely good as well. Yulong can't really describe why, but it feels like he knows what a hectic life of war is like somehow, and the peace he has now is amazing. He does like fighting, but he also likes a quiet life. That's also part of why he's fallen back on fighting and training in general. Even though he does like it, he's grown a little bit bored of it to an extent. What can Roshi do to make him realize his full potential? One night Yulong darts awake, there's a full moon in the sky, and he can sense a strong ki far away. Is this a threat? Or maybe a good challenge for him or something? Yulong's not sure, but the power is impressive, so he decides to see what it is. Especially because the ki that he feels, it seems kind of hectic. He arrives to the source of it pretty quickly, and he sees a giant monkey. He also sees what appears to be Roshi's former student, Gohan. He's heard about him and seen a picture of him, so he does recognize him. Yulong asks what happened, but Gohan says he's not too sure. But he recognizes Yulong too. He thanks Yulong for coming here to help, but he says not to hurt the ape. That's his son, he transformed into that. And with a single blow, he knocks him unconscious. The giant ape falls to the ground, de-transforming. And for the first time, he sees Goku. Yulong also just saved Gohan's life because little did he know, Gohan was about to die to that. He was mainly just interested in the power, but it seemed to be nothing. Gohan is glad to finally meet him though. He's heard a lot about Yulong due to his notoriety, and he knows that it's Roshi's student as well. But Yulong's a bit confused about this kid though. He transformed into that giant ape? Weird. He sits to talk with Gohan a bit more. But without Frieza being in this story, how did Goku get here? Well, that requires a little bit of history on the Cooler Force. After the supposed death of Frieza, King Cold gave all his power to Cooler. Cold respected him for killing his younger brother. That shows cruelty. He'll make a great leader. And besides, it's not like he'd want to pass it down to anyone else. Cooler is growing stronger by the day as well. Maybe not to the extent of what Frieza would have grown to be, but Cold still notes his potential. Cooler was a very successful leader. He even took his armored squadron, and they became his right-hand men, with people like Zarbon and Dodoria below that. In a sense, it was business as usual. Maybe not with the same iron grip Frieza had, but still, a more powerful and domineering presence than King Cold. He even got an interesting suggestion one day from the god of destruction Beerus, influencing him to destroy planet Vegeta. He also does know about the legend of the Super Saiyan and doesn't really want to mess with that. Same with the Super Saiyan god. Broly of course is still sent away like normal, and Bardock eventually realizes what's happening and is able to send Kakarot away too. The only survivors are Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz. Realistically, Cooler's involvement would change some of the Granola arc too, specifically with the heaters, as well as Bardock's mission on Planet Cereal and stuff like that, but this will all come later. For now, this is just a brief rundown as to why Goku's here in the first place. Following his transformation, Goku recovers the next day and wakes up, shocked to see Yulong because he's never seen someone that looks like him. But Goku comes to like him because he seems like a pretty nice guy. Also, Gohan tells him of what happened, and he learns that Yulong was the one to stop it. He's a smart, respectful, and strong warrior, and thankfully not a creep like Roshi. And with this meeting, that cements Goku's interest in Yulong as a fighter. After talking more to Yulong and learning more about him, Gohan could already tell this will be a clear inspiration for Goku going forward. Talking more with Yulong, Goku realizes that this guy is really cool, and he seems incredibly powerful as well. Gohan mentions that this guy's actually the strongest person on Earth. So far, no one's been able to beat him, not even his masters. Yulong asks Goku if he remembers anything about transforming, and Goku remembers nothing. Interesting, because it seemed to greatly increase his power, but he completely forgets what happened. Roshi had told him about Gohan's kid. Just like him, Goku randomly appeared one day. At least for Goku though, he looks human enough so Gohan didn't really think anything of it. As for Yulong, he's clearly from somewhere else. But still, for some reason, Yulong feels like him and Goku, they should share some sort of similar origin. It's a weird feeling he has, but he can't really put his finger on why he's feeling that. Oh well, doesn't matter to him though. He's glad that he actually finally got to formally meet Gohan, and also save him, as well as meeting Goku. Goku does ask Yulong if one day they could fight, and Yulong says he's gonna have to train a lot first, but yeah, he'd be up for that. Yulong returns to Kame House, and Goku immediately begins to train more and more, wanting to grow as strong as he can, as quickly as he can. And after some time, he eventually shows up at Kame House, having made a journey here just to train under Roshi. He knew that Yulong was here too, and he tells Yulong the whole reason he's here is so that he could fight him one day. Goku hopes Roshi could train him to be as strong as Yulong is. But at the very least, Gohan thinks it's a good idea that he comes here, so that's why he came here. He's already trained a good bit with Grandpa Gohan, and Roshi does note that he's powerful too. And especially after what Yulong told him about Goku transforming into a giant monkey, Roshi sees some sort of an opportunity here, and Roshi thinks he would be a good fit for the Turtle School. Although it's pretty weird because now the Turtle School has two really unique students, and without Roshi knowing, both are aliens who are interconnected. What Cooler never realized is that fate might be working against him. His younger brother ended up surviving and ended up here on Earth. And now, one of the Saiyans ended up surviving, one that Cooler didn't know was still alive. He's here on Earth too, with Kakarot and Frieza now crossing paths. Only this time, it's Goku and Yulong. Gohan even gave Goku his keepsake, the 4-star Dragon Ball. Weirdly enough, Goku doesn't even realize that the other two around him, they have Dragon Balls too. Now there's 3 at Kame House. Which means at some point, Bulma definitely would go there because she sees 3 Dragon Balls in one spot. When she starts her search for the Dragon Balls, this is the place she begins at. At first, Yulong's a bit concerned because the Red Ribbon Army came after him for the Dragon Balls before. He never really cared too much about gathering all of them himself and summoning Shenron, but he's known about them for a while. Bulma explains what she's up to, and Yulong really has no interest in joining her, but Goku actually wants to go along. He explains how he already knew of the Dragon Balls and how he came across one too after he started making headlines, as well as the fact that some army came after him when he was in possession of it, which kind of freaks Bulma out because she thinks that army's going to come after her too. But Yulong says not to worry. He single-handedly defeated the army. That's even more terrifying. This guy took out the entire army himself. Well, at least she'll have Goku going on the way with her. Yulong says he'll give her the Dragon Ball if she's able to collect all the others. That'll be his condition for giving it to her. Same for the Dragon Ball Roshi has, since Roshi actually gave it to Yulong to keep. So Bulma goes on her journey with Goku. Yulong's relatively uninvolved, and when they come across Ox King, Roshi's there to lend a hand. They end up beating Yamcha too, and the Pilaf gang comes after them as well. But thankfully with Goku having a head start in his training, the Pilaf gang isn't really an issue at all. He was already terrifying to deal with before, and now he's even more powerful. This leads to them being captured by the Pilaf gang like normal. And when Yulong senses Goku transforming, he realizes there's an issue. So quickly he flies over there, stopping Goku and stopping the Pilaf gang. With the Pilaf gang even more terrified at how strong this guy is. But now they have all the Dragon Balls, so Bulma makes her wish. And since she's already met Yamcha, instead of wishing for a boyfriend, she goes with the Strawberry Wish, summoning Shenron at Kame House, which is an incredible sight to see. She's glad to have met everyone, but now she goes off on her own, with Goku returning to Kame House to train. He's growing as a fighter really quickly, and Yulong's interested to see this. He does wonder if Goku can ever get control over that giant monkey form he has, because it is still pretty dangerous. Both times he transformed, Yulong had to be the one to stop it. Either Goku needs to prevent that from happening in the first place, or he needs to figure out how to control it if there even is a way to control it at all. As Goku continues training at Kame House, eventually another student arrives, Krillin. Given Goku's head start, he's way ahead of Krillin. But still, it's nice for him to have a rival that's actually on his level and not just Yulong, who's way above everybody. This will be good for him, especially because they plan on entering the next World Tournament. The concerns Roshi had with Yulong have passed. It seems now he finally has some sort of interest in training and fighting again. Even though he's already achieved the ultimate level of strength, something about Goku was able to encourage him again. And at least for Goku, Roshi's glad to know that Goku will always have someone stronger than him, a level that he could always strive for. The power's never going to get to his head too much because Yulong will always be above him. But still, he wonders how this tournament will go. And just because Goku encourages him, Yulong participates in this tournament too. Roshi doesn't enter as Jackie-chan either. It's just Yulong there. Goku and Krillin perform very well on their own, and they even end up fighting each other. But Goku's the one who makes it to the finals, facing off against Yulong. He knows Yulong's way stronger than him, but he's not going to back down just because of that. The two of them have a real battle. Yulong holds back a lot just to drag it out and see what Goku's capable of. He could end this with one hit if he wanted, but he decides to have some fun, heavily suppressing his power, allowing Goku to actually have some fun himself too, and to teach him along the way. And you know, even though he's holding back a lot, he's having a lot of fun with this. It's been a while since he's had fun with fights. Actually, he's never really had fun with fights at all. He's always been so much above his opponents that he never really could enjoy it like that. Of course, he still is heavily above his opponent here, but still, this battle's actually fun. There's meaning to this for him. This also eventually leads to Goku becoming a great ape again. But instead of instantly knocking him out, Yulong basically protects everybody else from Goku, trying to see if he can control this form somehow. And there is a brief moment where it looks like Goku is able to control it, but it's fleeting. So, reluctantly, Yulong has to knock him out anyways, and he ends up winning the tournament like this. And this time, the moon doesn't get blown up either, which is also a huge plus. Once more, he's the world champion. Although everyone's pretty impressed with that Goku kid because he seemed really powerful on his own, and he seemed to know Yulong somewhat. Since the Red Ribbon Army is already defeated, there's no Red Ribbon Army arc either. So, after this tournament, we could basically skip right to the 22nd World Tournament. And not much is going to change with it because Yulong decides to not enter this time. This is a huge shock to everyone, but it also makes sense because he's already so far above them. Although the people who set up the tournament do ask if he could face whoever wins the tournament. So instead of him just decimating everybody, it gives people a chance and it still lets him fight at the end. And he ends up agreeing to this. He's not officially part of the tournament, but he's going to basically be a final challenger for whoever ends up winning. This is also his first introduction to the Crane School, also eventually leading to a fight between Goku and Tenshinhan. But thankfully this time for Goku, he actually is able to beat Tenshinhan. Thanks to his head start and the fact that he's been training under Yulong a bit, he's grown significantly in power and technique. Plus, the fact that he hasn't been living like a wild animal in the woods. Gohan's alive still. He's had a lot of good influences around him. And he ends up taking home his first world tournament. He's elated, but he still has to fight against Yulong. But strangely enough, Yulong's nowhere to be found. Not long after this match, Yulong's preparing to fight against Goku again. He goes to check up on Krillin, and he sees that Krillin's being attacked by somebody. Tamborine's there. Instantly he's on high alert, and with no effort at all, Yulong protects Krillin, defeating Tamborine with one hit. Krillin's not only amazed to see his power once more, but relieved that Yulong was able to get here in time and protect him. Yulong has no clue who this monster is, but he's not going to lay a hand on any of his friends. But he doesn't kill Tamborine, because he asks about who he is and what he's here for. Tamborine's terrified, and Yulong's able to get the info out of him. He tells Krillin to wait here, and if anyone's concerned about him missing, tell them he'll be right back. He's going to take care of this, and then he'll come back and finish this tournament. Tamborine then tries to escape, with everyone at the tournament witnessing it too. He also tries to take an opportunity to attack somebody else, but Yulong's able to stop him once more, taking hold of him and asking him to lead him to where his leader is. Yulong's able to track down King Piccolo thanks to Tamborine's help, realizing that the Pilaf gang is part of this too. Great, these guys again. He single-handedly defeats King Piccolo and all of his sons. And before he's about to destroy King Piccolo, there's a voice in his head telling him to wait and to not kill King Piccolo. This is weird, and of course he's not going to trust it right away. Someone telling him to spare the enemy? This guy's trying to go around and kill all the World Tournament contestants. And with the Pilaf gang being involved, he's probably after the Dragon Balls as well. Why would he spare this guy? But the voice in his head tries to calm him down, quickly explaining who he is. The person he's hearing right now, it's the Guardian of Earth, Kami, the one who created the Dragon Balls, and one whose life is linked with King Piccolo. He'd like to talk with Yulong, but he can't necessarily do that if he kills King Piccolo. Although, if Yulong has some sort of way to seal him, that might be a good solution. Actually, now that he's thinking about it, Yulong realizes that he's heard about King Piccolo before. He heard about King Piccolo from Roshi once, although it was in passing. The only reason he knows about this is because Roshi told him about King Piccolo when he was teaching him this specific technique, because it was used against him. A sealing technique. Perfect. Piccolo, of course, is terrified beyond belief because, first of all, this guy one-shotted him and all of his sons. And on top of that, now he's talking with Kami. And to make things even worse, Yulong then takes a stance that Piccolo's familiar with. It's one he saw a while ago when he was sealed away. Yulong's about to use the Mafuga on him, and he pulls it off effortlessly, once more sealing King Piccolo away, stopping him before he's able to ever do anything, which also means that there's no Piccolo Jr. here either. And Kami gets to survive too, which is a nice plus. Kami says he'll meet with Yulong soon enough, and thanks him for taking that route. He's been wanting to meet with him, but wasn't sure when the right time was. Yulong returns to the tournament. Thankfully, not too much time has passed, and the extra match could finally begin. Yulong versus Goku. Of course, Goku ends up losing once more, but still, this time he does a lot better. And Yulong gets to enjoy the fight as well, seeing how much Goku's grown in the past few years. He has been training with him, and has trained him a bit himself too. But being on the other end of it and actually fighting him, that's a different thing. And it's only fitting that Goku's the one to end his streak of winning world tournaments. Although, he still is undefeated, he just didn't enter this one. Not that he cares about that status anyways. After everyone's about to leave the tournament, this is when Kami appears, finally getting to meet Yulong and Goku as well. He's been watching both of them. He's seen many great things from them, watching them throughout their tournaments. And especially after Yulong defeated King Piccolo, also without killing him, he at least owes Yulong some sort of help, telling Yulong that he actually lives above Korin's tower. If they kept climbing up, or flying up, that's where they'd find Kami's lookout. Although, he's not too sure if he could teach Yulong much. For other people he'd be really beneficial as a teacher, but Yulong's been practicing martial arts for years. Of course, he could learn some things from Kami, but Kami says he'd probably only be there a really short time. From what he's seen, Yulong's already a master of all martial arts, and his power is incredible as is. But still, he could tell Yulong has some sort of power locked away. He's not sure exactly what, but he'd like to see what that is, so even if he can't necessarily teach him anything new, he might be able to at least guide Yulong in the right direction. Plus, he could at least train Goku too. And Yulong finds this interesting. If Kami's been watching him, why wait until now? Well, he wanted to see how much he's grown as a warrior. Also, he wanted to learn more about Yulong's character. Clearly, he is a good person and worthy of training up there. But Yulong has another question. If Kami's been watching him all that time, does he know anything about Yulong's origin? And Kami says he doesn't necessarily know much. If he asked King Kai, he might have known something. But all he knows is that one day, Yulong landed on Earth. He can't say with certainty that Yulong isn't from this planet, which Yulong kinda already suspected. Roshi told him that a while ago. He just fell out of the sky one day. And that's exactly why he thinks Yulong has something else locked away. They know nothing about him. He's not human, which probably explains the insane strength he has. But they don't even know why he ended up here in the first place, especially because he ended up here injured. Kami wonders if they'll be able to get to the bottom of that together, but he kinda doubts it. But at the very least, he wants to make an attempt to unlock that power that he has locked away. Because just by looking at him up close, he could tell. Yulong's not at his full strength yet. This isn't his peak. It might seem like it is, but it isn't. It's almost like there's power suppressed within there that he doesn't realize is there. Kami wants to take them both as students. Goku because he kinda needs the training, and Yulong because they want to figure out more about him. And just like he wants to tap into whatever power Yulong has, Goku can also try and finally control that Great Ape form he has. So with the tournament over, the two of them go to train under Kami. Meanwhile, deep out in space, Cooler's rule over everything continues. There are still a couple Saiyans in his army, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz. And after all this time, Raditz is wondering, is Kakarot still out there somewhere? They could probably recruit him. One day they'll have to go and find him and see if he'll join their ranks. Who knows, maybe with his help, the Saiyans will grow strong enough to defeat Cooler. It's kind of a long shot, but still, worth noting. Following the 22nd World Tournament, Tenshinhan goes to Roshi. He wants to learn that same type of power. He knows Yulong is just naturally gifted, but still, he could tell that Roshi was a great teacher for him. Whatever the Crane School's been doing for him, it's limiting him. Seeing those other two warriors makes him realize this. Same for Chaozu too. So, Roshi begins training the two of them. Meanwhile, Goku and Yulong are on the lookout with Kami. It does take a lot of time, and they do have to move off the lookout at some points for this, but Goku is trying to learn how to control his Grade 8 form. Every time there's a full moon out, they try and practice with it. The alternative is probably just cutting Goku's tail off completely. But this is much better. Goku eventually does get control over the form, but it's not like he could use it willingly. It's only when the full moon's out. But still, this is great. He no longer has to fear this, and he's finally overcome it. Plus, he gets to keep his tail, which could be really useful in combat. While Goku's working on that, Yulong's trying to access more power within himself. He's always been hesitant to use his full strength because he knows there's way more locked away in there, but he's never tried to tap into it. At some point, he shows Kami what he thinks is his true power, but Kami could tell that he has more within him. The power that he has right now is stunning, just in this form he's in. But what Yulong doesn't know, and what no one else knows either, is the fact that this is a suppression of his power. He's subconsciously suppressed all the time. Ever since he came here, likely due to the head trauma, he doesn't realize that he has more power locked away. Kami looks deep into his mind and his heart, and he tells Yulong outright, this form that he has now, it's not his true self. It's a suppression of himself, figuratively and literally. And if this is only a fraction of his power, it makes Kami terrified to think of what his true power might be like, and he wonders what Yulong's true form is. He's never had a trigger to go full power, not even in his first form. This is the first time he's actually used his full strength in this first form because he's always been worried to use it. Kami tries to get him to control this first, and once he does so, they're going to move beyond this, seeing if they could tap into what his true power is like. Just in this form alone, his ki is so strong that it could be felt all over Earth. It's terrifying. But thankfully he uses this power cautiously. Powering up into this reinforces the idea that he's just scared of it, because if he uses this against anyone in combat, he'll kill him pretty much instantly. And of course against the villain that's probably not a bad thing, but still, he's always restricting himself. That can't be good. He needs to embrace it. At some point over this brief time skip, Ten eventually joins them on the lookout too, with Chaozu staying back at Kame House. He's grown a lot with Roshi and he's going to grow even more here. Eventually that leads us to the 23rd World Tournament, which is a pretty peaceful endeavor because there's no Piccolo Jr. Goku still did meet Chi-Chi a while ago, and that leads to a marriage proposal here again. Other than that, it's just respectful fights all the way through. But there's two clear favorites in the tournament, Goku and Ten. And the final matchup is Goku versus Ten. Yulong's there again to fight as the champion. And Ten actually gives Goku a really tough fight here. Goku doesn't transform, it's not like he can. So this is just in their base. The two can't believe how much the other has grown. Ten at some point pulls out the Four Witches technique, so in response, Goku starts to use his tail as an extra arm. The fight actually goes on for quite a long time, but in the end, Goku's able to pull ahead. Remember, Goku's way stronger at this point than he was in the original series too, so that should show you how strong Ten is as well. He's completely devoted himself to getting stronger than Goku and Yulong. And now it looks like Goku might have a true rival on his level. Of course, Yulong was always there, but this is someone who will always share a similar level of strength with him. And that leads to another Goku versus Yulong matchup, which has the same result. Yulong wins again. Even though the gap in power is massive, Yulong could tell that Goku's grown a lot, and Goku says the same for Yulong. He's not sure how he could even discern that growth because it already seemed like Yulong was the perfect warrior, but he's grown. His technique, his fighting style, everything about him. He's still improving to this day, and he promises Yulong, one day, they're gonna fight and Yulong's gonna use his full power. He'll give Yulong a reason to use it. And not the full power in his current state, no. Whatever Kami's been trying to lead him towards, that's what Goku wants to fight him with. And Yulong's up for this challenge. He looks forward to how much Goku can grow as a warrior. Following this tournament, we have another time skip. For Yulong, it doesn't really amount to much. He likes his peaceful life. He does keep trying to grow, but still, he's somewhat lazy outside of battles. And also somewhat unmotivated, even with his new rivals. Goku, Krillin, Tenshinhan, none of them are on his level. Plus, all of them are up to their own things now. He sees Krillin a good amount at Kame House, but Ten fully spends his time with Kami, and eventually Krillin does go there too. As for Goku, he's starting a family. He hasn't actually seen him in a bit. Roshi does worry that he's growing a bit lazy, but Yulong just has nothing to do really. That same motivation Goku was giving him, it's slowly waning. He hopes he could find something that can give him that thrill again. This eventually leads to a reunion at Kame House. Roshi, Yulong, and Chaozu are already there, so Chaozu's been with Yulong this entire time, kinda leading to a strange friendship because it's Frieza, and these two have actually known each other a while by now, but everyone else returns too. Tenshinhan comes back, Krillin comes back, Grandpa Gohan even arrives, and Goku's about to come back too. Bulma's there too, of course. Goku lands on the island and everyone sees that he has a kid now. He can't see Yulong anywhere in sight, but Roshi says he's sleeping. He likes doing that a lot now. But he'll be outside soon. But strangely enough, someone else shows up to the island unexpected, someone who they don't even know. wearing armor that looks eerily similar to Yulong's, the kind of armor that he wears sometimes, the armor he was wearing when he first showed up to Earth, and the armor that he still wears occasionally. Of course, the meeting gets hostile pretty quickly, leading to Raditz attacking Krillin. This disturbs Yulong's nap. He steps outside, slowly waking up, and Raditz is terrified at first feeling his power, and even more terrified when he sees who steps out of the house. This guy looks almost like King Cold. Even the armor he's wearing, it's the same armor they have. And then Yulong sees what's happening here. It's a threat. Immediately angered, his power flares up a little bit more, and it's still only a fraction of his power, but it's enough to make Raditz cower in fear. Who the hell is this guy? But Raditz slowly starts to put the pieces together. He was just telling Kakarot about how he's actually a Saiyan. But there's no way what he's thinking is true. As he looks at Yulong, he has an idea in his head, but there's no way that could actually be what's happening here. He remembers a story of Cooler having a sibling before, having killed him a while back. This isn't even a rumor either. It was proudly proclaimed by Cooler before. They've heard this story multiple times. No one ever really got to see Frieza, but they heard the stories about him. Apparently he was incredibly powerful, and Cooler killed him to take the throne, in an effort to grow far stronger and far crueler than his younger brother, who apparently showed some great promise. He tries to get Goku to join him, but he's intimidated by Yulong being there. So he doesn't really push too hard. But Goku's obviously not going to join here. He doesn't care if this guy's his brother or not. He's not like that. He's not just going to leave Earth to take over some planet with this guy. And who's to say he's not here to do the same to Earth? And Yulong slowly walks towards Raditz. He's going to ask him once, leave now. They're having a peaceful reunion here, and he doesn't want anyone disturbing that peace. Raditz slowly moves a hand behind his back, charging an artificial moon, but Yulong quickly moves behind him, grabbing his hand, and stopping Raditz from attacking. And getting a small taste of that power is enough for Raditz. There's no doubt about it. And you know what? If this guy actually is Frieza, maybe Raditz can get him to join too. It's kind of a long shot, but it seems like he also doesn't know who he truly is. So Raditz asks him, what does the name Frieza mean to him? Yulong has no clue, but he wants an explanation of what Raditz is trying to get at. He says he can't be entirely sure, but he explains, giving the whole story about Cooler and Frieza, at least what he knows about it. He even gives a time frame for when this happened, and Roshi perks up hearing this. That's around the time where Yulong first came to Earth. And Raditz is glad. This supports his theory. So he turns to Yulong. Doesn't he want to kill his brother? Doesn't he want revenge against Cooler for doing that? Surely he has to remember something about what happened. And Yulong surprisingly doesn't care. First of all, he can't verify that this even happened. This is just a theory Raditz is creating. Second of all, he doesn't remember it personally. Weirdly enough, it seems that when he and Goku first came to Earth, both of them got amnesia in different ways. Not only making them forget their past, but changing them somewhat too. He would like to know more about his origin, but what's the point of ruining his peace over a hunch? That's the most important part to him. There's no point in starting a war over this, especially if he can't verify it. So Raditz tries bargaining even more. If he were to get proof that this guy was Frieza, and the fact that Cooler actually did all this, would he fight Cooler? By now he could discuss this openly because when Yulong grabbed his arm to stop him from creating the artificial moon, he also moved quick enough to break his scouter. With how fast he moved, Raditz didn't even notice this. But no one's listening in, which is probably for the better. He wonders how much of that they would have seen, and he keeps that in the back of his mind. But Yulong still doesn't care. He is a bit intrigued to hear how strong Cooler is, but again, he doesn't really want to start a war over this. It could be a good challenge, but it's not really worth it. Plus, Raditz has already made a bad impression. He's threatened and hurt his friends, and he's a threat to Earth too. Raditz keeps trying to push him, trying to get him to join the cause. This is a desperate attempt to stop Cooler once and for all, and he's taking advantage of the fact that, for some reason, both Kakarot and Frieza have seemed to turn into good people. No longer the ruthless warriors they were before. They don't even remember their past. This is such a great opportunity for him, at least when it comes to Frieza. For Kakarot, he doesn't even care anymore. But Yulong realizes that words won't work against this guy. So, he ups the intimidation. The entire island starts shaking. The water around them grows rough. An aura flares up around Yulong. He takes his armor off. And then, he starts to grow in size. Everyone besides Ten and Goku are scared. Ten actually saw this before in the lookout amidst the 5-year time skip, in one of the rare instances where Yulong was actually training up there. Why is he using that here? Simply to intimidate Raditz, he shows off his second form, without even realizing that he looks exactly like King Cold now. There's no doubt about it in Raditz's mind. That makes him even more fearful. So, for once, he finally takes it serious. He should be thankful Yulong didn't just kill him on the spot, and he's surprised he got that many chances. He really is different from Cooler, and Raditz isn't too sure why. Yulong actually discovered this form with Kami. Subconsciously, he always does hold back. His normal state is actually a suppression, and over the past 5 years, he's been working on trying to access that. And that's also part of the reason he's gotten a little bit lazy, because now he knows what his true strength is, and he has no real reason to use it. His normal state, that short form they always see him in, it's actually a suppression of his power. He could actually go beyond this current form too. He's simply using it for intimidation. And if Raditz isn't scared by this, he can go into his third form. When he first came to Earth, likely due to the head trauma, he forgot how to innately do this and just subconsciously suppress himself the entire time. But now, he knows what his true form is like. Although, while he wants to intimidate Raditz, he also doesn't want to intimidate his friends too much. So this is as far as he'll go for now. especially because there's a kid here. He didn't even notice Goku brought a kid along. Cowering in fear, Raditz leaves. He can't do anything here, but he at least has an idea in mind. He could start a war between these two, even if Frieza doesn't want it. As for Kakarot, he's a lost cause. He's so weak, and he's too good to be a Saiyan. Sure, they could have used him to take over a planet or whatever, but really they want to get rid of Cooler, and then they could take over everything. They've always wanted to get rid of Cooler, and what better option than to have Frieza fight him? When Raditz gets back on his ship, he contacts the other two Saiyans, and they try and plan something. Vegeta still can't believe what Raditz saw, but does he have any proof of it at least? Well, Raditz's scouter broke midway through, but there should be some sort of data on it. Vegeta thinks it's a long shot, but it might work. And Nappa thinks this is a really good idea. If that truly is Frieza, which it seems likely he is, they could just pit the two against each other and they don't even need to do anything. Hopefully they kill each other off, and even if not, it'll cause so much instability that it gives them an opportunity to strike. But if they don't kill each other and one of them ends up surviving, they'll still need to be strong enough to take out the remaining one. At least this tells them that they can get something done here. Even if all they could do is cause instability, that's good enough. It'll show that Cooler's a weak leader, and could cause a revolt against him. Raditz finds it kind of weird how both Kakarot and Frieza were good. There must be something in the water on Earth that makes people forget who they are, and makes them go crazy. Or maybe it's just a weird coincidence. Raditz is able to extract some of the data from the scouter, getting in contact with Zarbon and Dodoria, who then contact Cooler's armored squadron, his right-hand men, and they directly bring it up the chain to Cooler. So, Cooler himself calls Raditz in. It does take some time for all this because of the space travel, but still, Raditz gets his attention relatively quickly. Raditz also has to explain why he was there in the first place, and he was prepared for this. They wanted to recruit another Saiyan to help take over a planet. He remembered his weakling brother was sent away as a kid, and never thought much of him before, and he still doesn't think much of him. He wouldn't have been a good help. Honestly, he would have killed Kakarot there on Earth, if it weren't for the fact that he ran into Frieza. Kakarot was still weak, still useless, and he seemed to forget his memory. But same for Frieza too. Cooler finds this kind of strange, and he doesn't particularly buy Raditz's story either. Why now? Why go and find Kakarot after all this time? But he doesn't press any further because Raditz keeps giving him info about Frieza. That's worth something at least. He called himself Yulong or something. He didn't know who he was. Raditz did notice a slight scar on his head, which is more confirmation for Cooler. He remembers shooting him right through the skull. And he even saw Frieza's second form. He was the spitting image of King Cold. All of this is adding up, and especially with the data from the scouter, it sounds like he could be trusted with the story. So, Cooler doesn't press any further, thanking Raditz. Even though it's weird he went to Earth in the first place, the fact that Raditz told him all this proves that he's probably still loyal. So Cooler then consults his father. King Cole is disappointed that Cooler didn't finish the job. He was sloppy with it. He should have made sure to watch Frieza die. I mean, after all, they're quite durable. He should know this. And Cooler promises not to make the same mistake as last time. He's going to finish the job for good. He needs to make sure Frieza's truly dead. And he's been training after all this time too. Unlike Frieza in the main story, he was never against this. He doesn't have a ton of free time for training, but here and there, Cooler has trained. And after all this time has passed, that amounts to something. It adds up in the end. This next encounter will be even easier than last time. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Yulong's concerned. He and Goku have finally learned about their past, and there might be a challenge ahead too. But Goku wants to see Yulong's true power. He wants to see what they're working against, because if all that's true, and they will eventually face his brother, Goku wants to know how strong that guy can be. There's no way he could be stronger than Yulong, right? But just in case, he wants to get a gauge of his power. Yulong says he'll show Goku his true power, but he's not going to use it in a battle. He's had an issue holding back while using it. Kami did help him unlock his true self, but still, he needs to learn more about how to use this. That form he saw at Kame House, that's one of his 3 new forms. Actually, the state he's normally in, that's a form itself. What he's about to show Goku, that's his true state, his base form, if you will. And with a powerful burst of ki, he transforms. Just the feeling of his aura alone, it's enough to freeze Goku in place. And for the first time, Goku gets to see what Yulong truly looks like. He doesn't look as intimidating as his second form, but the dramatic increase in his power more than makes up for that. This is his true self, with no power suppressed. This is his true form, and he's been subconsciously holding it back for so long. Yulong explains to Goku further that this is his true self. This form takes no stamina to maintain, it's just him. For so long, he knew nothing about this form, nothing about himself really. And now he's finally starting to learn, all in this relatively short time span. He had no clue of what his origin was. He didn't know his power went this far. And with all the new info being presented to him, he wonders, what was he supposed to be like before he came to Earth? What was he destined to be? Nearby where they are, there's some water. And Yulong walks over to it, looking at his reflection. He doesn't even recognize his current self. What is this Frieza person supposed to be like? Is there any chance of him ever becoming that at all? Or is he different? Is he his own person? He's been left with a lot to think about. Assuming what Raditz said is true, which it probably is. But Goku tells him their past lives don't matter. Kakarot and Frieza, they don't exist anymore. He's Goku, and the person in front of him, it's Yulong. For some reason, it seems like they were fated to end up here together, both turning good. As far as Goku is concerned, Yulong is more of an older brother to him than Raditz is. Maybe it's good that they forgot after all this time. Goku does kind of wonder what he would have been like as Kakarot, but he doesn't waste much effort thinking about that. It's useless to think about. He's Goku from Earth, and that's exactly what Yulong should think like. He's Yulong from Earth. Yulong's always felt so alien from everyone, literally and figuratively. He lives at Kame House, secluded. He clearly doesn't look human, and his power has always been treated as otherworldly. People have praised him for it. People have attacked him for it. That might be part of the reason why he felt so empty with trying to get more power. And looking at the form he's in now, it makes him wonder, what's Cooler gonna be like? He doesn't want to fight Cooler, but he's smart. He knows that Raditz is probably gonna plan something to get Cooler to come here. Was this excessive power meant to be used for cruelty? He can't help but feel that's the case. But Goku's right. That doesn't matter anymore. Yulong turns to him and smiles. If they do end up facing Cooler, they will win. At best, no one comes to Earth. Maybe Raditz returns with the other two Saiyans, which will be easy to stop. At worst, Cooler comes here, who they know nothing about, but they should remain confident. The smart thing to do right now is to start training. This time around, Yulong becomes a teacher of sorts, training Goku, Tenshinhan, Krillin, Yamcha, and Chaozu. He doesn't know Yamcha as well as everyone else, but he has trained at Kame House before and was here a few years ago. The other four, he actually does know pretty well, especially Goku, Krillin, and surprisingly Chaozu. He knows exactly what they need to work on, and he's going to help them. Goku, Tenshinhan, and Krillin are constantly trying to surpass each other. They have a three-way rivalry, and they're far beyond their canon selves at this point, mainly due to the fact that their training's been completely different. Goku's had a head start, while Ten and Krillin have spent a lot of time with Kami. Right now the powers are as follows. Goku's at 2,000, Ten's not too far behind at 1,500, with Krillin also being the same exact power level. Then there's a pretty sizable gap with the Yamcha at 200, and Chaozu also at 200. As for Yulong, he still has never used his 100% power. Even though he knows what his final form's like, aka his true self, he hasn't used it at 100%, and he needs to get past his mental barriers and tap into that. But right now, his maximum power is actually really high. 200 million. It's excessive compared to everyone else, but it's pretty conservative when you think about it. His growth has been slower than the normal Frieza would be due to multiple reasons. He's been subconsciously suppressing himself a bunch. He hasn't been training strength as much. He is a little bit lazy too, and also those injuries and rehabilitation he had, that held him back from growing even further. Sure, he's seen growth. Like his power right now, it's much higher than Final Form Frieza, even at 100%. But if he trained rigorously, consistently, and didn't get held back by his injuries and rehabilitation, he'd be way stronger than this at this point. He's only just now starting to realize his full potential, and by finally getting to see what his true form is like, day by day, the rate at which he grows is accelerating. Ever since learning more about himself, he's been reinvigorated. And that's kind of why he's a teacher now too. He's knowledgeable, and so much stronger than the group that he wants to get them to his level. But that's a pretty high bar. He doesn't know if that's possible. Still, worth a shot. If anyone could do it, it's these people around him. At the same time though, it might sound like his power is a little bit excessive, but you also have to consider, Cooler's been training too. Nobody knows his true power. But one thing's for sure, Yulong and Cooler are both in a league of their own. After Yulong trains everybody for a bit, Kami then contacts them and tells them to come to the lookout. He has a much better idea for what they should do. Not because Yulong's a bad teacher or anything, but because they could learn something else from King Kai. King Kai begins talking with them through their minds, and he introduces himself. Normally he wouldn't get involved, but for something like this, he kind of needs to. Everyone besides Yulong goes to King Kai. Yulong decides it's best to stay here because he wants to protect Earth. It's better to have at least one person here, and especially with him being the strongest, he should probably stay here. But King Kai does want to talk to him directly, so he speaks through his mind. He's sure Yulong has a lot of questions by now, and King Kai actually does have some answers. He's been watching Earth for a while. He knows how Yulong got there. Like he said before, normally he wouldn't get involved with things like this, but considering it involves Frieza and Cooler, trillions of lives are at risk. Yes, it's that serious. So, he explains what he knows and confirms everything. Yes, Yulong is actually formerly Frieza. He was born into that family, born pure evil actually. That empire that Cooler now rules, Frieza was actually the one destined to take over it. Cooler decided to assassinate him. King Kai is honestly not too sure how this happened, but it appears the trauma from everything after Cooler's assassination attempt, it changed how Yulong's mind worked, similar to Goku hitting his head and how that changed his mind. But he confirms everything he knows and tells him more about Cooler as well as King Cold. But he ends this off with a warning, telling Yulong that his power and potential are far greater than he realizes. Cooler is definitely a risk to everyone, but Yulong still doesn't know his full strength. He needs to learn how to control that. He only just started to access a fraction of that. If he truly wants to protect Earth, he needs to first of all know his limits, and second of all, he needs to know how to control that. He can't even theorize how far Yulong's power goes, but he knows it's probably pretty far. Yulong thanks King Kai for the info. Now he finally has confirmation, and also the words of encouragement from King Kai. He'll take that all to heart. King Kai basically reaffirmed what Yulong already assumed about himself, mainly the part about his power. Until he reaches full harmony with himself and his power, he's not going to be fully complete. More importantly, he won't be able to defeat Cooler until that time comes. Which is also part of the reason he's staying on Earth too. He doesn't need to learn more things from King Kai, as great as they might be. He still has a long way to go as Yulong, and until he does that, he won't have realized his true potential. Meanwhile in space, Cooler plans to go to Earth. It's not really a top priority right now, so it might take some time. Plus, as mentioned in the last part, getting to this point in the story, it actually does take some time because first of all, Raditz needs to travel to space, and everything needs to move around in the Cooler Force, up until the point when Cooler actually meets with Raditz in person. Don't worry, we're done jumping around here, but this is about a year ahead. That's where we currently are at the point when Cooler gets the concrete info and plans for attacking, and slowly starts to make his move. He has an empire to run after all, and he preferred to see Raditz in person before deciding anything. Obviously, he does need to confirm what's going on. He's not going to waste his time and resources to go there based on a hunch from a Saiyan, one who he barely trusts in the first place. But he's more than confirmed it. Frieza is there on Earth. There is no doubt about that. Which means there's no doubt that Cooler wants to go there and kill him. Besides, running this empire does take a lot of time. But in the meantime, he could at least send some other people out to Earth. Following the year that's passed, we go back to Earth itself. Of course, Yulong's been training himself, spending a lot of time in his final form trying to get control over it. Not that it's hard to control, but it's mainly the fact that he doesn't know how far he can go with it. He hasn't used his full power yet, he's just trying to use this form in general. Because this form isn't a form, this is just him. The other 3 forms before it, those are suppressions. He knows that by now. The issue is trying to get the full power of this form because that's actually something beyond what he normally uses. But also during this time, he's been training with someone, mainly to teach them. He's been training Gohan, per Goku's request. After meeting him at Kame House, he did want to get to know him more, and he comes to learn that this kid is just like Goku. They haven't trained a lot, but he spent some time keeping him company, and also showing him the basics of martial arts. But amidst this training, he could sense something far away. It's actually really far, outside the boundaries of the solar system. Nobody else could even sense it besides King Kai. And before King Kai could say anything, Yulong then contacts everyone on the planet, which kind of amazes them because first of all, he was able to sense them all here without a trigger. He shouldn't know the location of King Kai's planet and how to contact it. Second of all, he's projecting his thoughts this far. And third, how did he sense enemies that far away? They weren't even powered up. King Kai's just amazed about all this. It's almost scary actually. But Yulong basically gives the warning that everyone needs to get back here. They have about a day until they face the first enemies. But they get back just in time. Crossing Snake Way doesn't take too long the way back, and they actually get some time to prepare. Yulong stands atop a large mountain, trying to sense exactly where the ship's going. He feels it getting closer to Earth. It's on the complete opposite side. Right now he's also in his first form, just so no one sees his true power. But the second he senses the ship getting close, he leaps from the mountain, darting around the planet with insane speed, grabbing onto the ship as it enters the atmosphere, and flinging it into a nearby wasteland, causing it to crash land. The rest of the group then comes over to where Yulong is. They didn't expect that, but that's good because it at least prevents it from landing in a city. Still, kinda crazy though how he just did that on a whim. From the crashed ship, 3 people step off. It's Cooler's armored squadron. The first thing they do is confirm that Frieza's there. They see him and relay that to Cooler. Goku, Ten, and Krillin step up first to fight, each facing one member on their own. This will be a great test of their power. Yulong's not even going to fight here, same for Yamcha and Chaozu for that matter. They just sit aside and watch. Goku tells the armored squadron that they've grown significantly. He's not sure if they're on their level. He doesn't even know who these guys are. But they've spent a year with King Kai and have learned a bunch of things. There's 5 people training together on the planet. Plus, they started at higher points already. And they had a bunch of time on King Kai's planet. It's not like a lot of that was wasted traveling across Snake Way. And Yulong's impressed. It seems to be exponential growth. This is a really tough battle for them too. But still, judging by the power of the armored squadron, the old Goku, Tenshinhan, and Krillin wouldn't have been able to beat them. They really have grown a lot with King Kai. And the main thing that's driving them, it's the fact that they could use Kaioken. Goku was actually going to try and use Great Ape somehow, but it's not like he could transform to that willingly. He does remember Raditz tried something to transform before, but Goku never got to see what it was because Yulong stopped him. He eventually would like to learn something like that, but in the meantime he has Kaioken, which he could actually push pretty high. By now he could use Kaioken at times 10, and if he really wants to push himself, times 20. As for the other two, they could do the same but it's a lot tougher for them. They mostly use something like Kaioken times 8, and with that the armored squadron is defeated. Not easily, but still, each in a 1v1. Of course Cooler was watching the entire time from the scouters. He can't believe it. He really wanted to see Frieza fight, but these people alone are powerful. He thought the squadron would be enough. But he'll be there soon enough to finish this, about 2 months from now. One scouter turned into a speaker, with Cooler talking directly to Yulong through it. It's good to finally learn that Frieza's actually alive. He's amazed that his brother survived all that. He thought he really finished the job back then. But this time he won't make the same mistake. Yulong doesn't reply at all, but Cooler keeps trying to taunt him through it. So, Yulong lifts up the scouter, pointing it right at himself. Still, saying nothing, he crushes it, completely ignoring Cooler's taunts. This only serves to piss Cooler off even more, but he could tell that he was getting under Frieza's skin. Those 2 months pass, and after some extra training, the day has finally arrived. A ship arrives on Earth, and everyone's ready this time, just like before. Except, it's not just one ship, it's a couple of ships, and there's a lot of people aboard them. Cooler's brought basically his entire army, and he steps off first, looking around at the group. They all look pretty unassuming, especially with Yulong there in his first form wearing his gi. Yulong's kinda disguising himself at the moment because using his first form will make him look weaker than he is. It's kind of a shame though because this gi's gonna get torn off mid-battle. He'll have to get a new one later, but it feels disrespectful still. And after all this time, Cooler could finally greet his brother, glad to see his own flesh and blood alive after so long. Of course, saying this sarcastically. Yulong says there's no point in wasting time. They should just try and fight as is. Cooler then calls for everyone to get off the ships. A bunch of soldiers step off. But someone in the crowd catches Goku's eye. He sees Raditz again, as well as what he assumes are the other two Saiyans. Their job will be to fight the army, while Yulong's gonna face off against Cooler. And Yulong starts off with some mind games, telling Cooler he's gonna use his full strength right off the bat, transforming right into his second form. He gains some height on Cooler, but he tries to make it seem like this form is his limit. Maybe this way he can catch Cooler off guard if he is too strong. He does want to gauge Cooler's strength, and with this bluff, this is the perfect way to do so. It's not wise to coax Cooler into using his full strength right away, unless he actually is at this level, in which case it'll be an easy battle. But if not, this is a pretty good mind game to play. And Cooler's a bit surprised to see this. This can't really be his limit. But he does remember before when the Armored Squadron arrived, he was only in his first form the entire time. So maybe it is. Maybe Frieza really is that pathetic. This should be fun. The fight officially starts with Cooler underestimating his brother. He feels like Frieza using his second form as a bluff, but he's already changed so much that maybe it isn't. Maybe that really is where he caps out in terms of power, which is kind of funny to him. This will be easier than he thought. To think that he had so much potential before and this is all he can muster? And this is the effect Yulong hoped this would have. He's trying to take advantage of Cooler's lowered guard, but he'll only have one chance to do so. So he makes Cooler feel a false sense of security, acting like he's having a really tough time in battle, and noticing that Cooler's holding back too. It seems like he wants to prolong this and enjoy it, which is perfect for Yulong. With Cooler's lowered power, that gives him one opportunity to actually give a strong attack. He's trying to play it smart and finish it as quick as possible. So, with Cooler's guard completely lowered, Yulong then powers up quickly, instantly going into his final form, attacking just as quickly as he transforms, hitting Cooler with a point-blank Kamehameha with an unexpected power-up alongside it. Cooler is able to pivot himself in the nick of time, but the attack still does injure him, taking a chunk out of the side of his torso. Well, it didn't really do what Yulong hoped, but still, at least this creates a weak spot for him. It seems Cooler's already at his full power, and they could just exploit this. Yulong now has the advantage. Even though the attack wasn't the kill shot that Yulong wanted, it still did a good amount of damage. And he starts attacking Cooler right in that weak spot. Cooler could see that Yulong's not playing around at all. He really doesn't care about revenge or any personal feelings. He just wants Cooler gone. Yulong's in this fight solely to protect Earth. Having a fun battle will be nice, but he knows this won't be a fun battle. The stakes are too high here. All he wants to do is get this over with and make sure everyone is safe. But there's one flaw in his assessment. Yulong could see that in their final forms, they're even, although with Cooler injured, as long as he keeps hitting that weak spot, he could land more critical blows on him. But this isn't Cooler's full power. He actually does have a form above this. He maintains his confident demeanor. This form might look similar to Frieza's final form, but it's not his final form. It feels like the entire Earth starts shaking as Cooler powers up. The ground below them cracks, with chunks of it flying in the air. Cooler starts to grow in size, and Yulong does try to attack mid-transformation, but Cooler's able to fend him off even while transforming, and he achieves his full transformation. He smirks in Yulong's direction, but the smirk's then covered up by a mask. He tells his brother his final form is useless, even if he goes to 100% power. Cooler transforming actually did partially heal that wound he had, but Yulong notices it's still there, a weak spot, and there's a huge difference in power between him and Cooler. But he notes something Cooler said. He thinks Yulong's holding back, and Yulong kinda knows he is too, but it's not something that he could just easily overcome. He's not holding back for any particular reason. It's just subconsciously, he's used to this. After decades of being on Earth and subconsciously suppressing his power, this is just the norm for him. He only just recently unlocked his final form. But this isn't the full power of that form, and he knows it. There's still a mental block in his mind, keeping him from fighting fully uninhibited, mostly due to him worrying about the others around him and the planet. If he gets some power that he can't control, then everyone's doomed. Yulong launches up in the air and then flies out into space, with Cooler following him. This way, he can mitigate some of the damage. Back on the surface, everyone else is fighting Cooler's army. Goku fights against the Saiyans alone. He comes face to face with Raditz again, asking why he did this. Raditz says it's their only shot at killing Cooler. Initially, when they came to recruit Kakarot, that was also part of the reason. He said it was to help take over a planet, but more so, it was to begin strengthening their ranks. A slow process and eventually forming a rebellion against Cooler. One where the Saiyans could defeat him and then take over. But when he saw Frieza, he had a much better idea. Just bring him here, have the two of them fight. At the very least, they hope Frieza can injure Cooler enough for them to jump in and then finish it. But Goku says they should have just left Earth alone. They didn't want to be involved in this, and he also warns the Saiyans that it probably won't go well for them. He's confident in Yulong's power and in his own. Goku then powers up into Kaioken very quickly, overpowering all of them, barely using it. They do absolutely nothing to Goku. Nappa then charges an artificial moon in his hand and throws it up in the sky, as Raditz tries to go for Goku's tail. Thing is here, that's not going to work. Goku's tail isn't a weak point. The whole reason he still has it is because he's trained. Not only to not have it as a weak point, but because he can control Grade Ape. So, as they all transform into Grade Ape, Goku does too. With all of Goku's friends watching nearby. They didn't get an advantage here, they just made themselves bigger targets. And it actually makes Goku kind of wonder, could he use Kaioken with Grade Ape? He never actually tried that, but it's worth a shot here. The Saiyans look terrified as Goku powers up, surrounded by that same red aura. Kaioken combined with the power of Great Ape. He's really excited to take this for a test drive. Within an instant, all the Saiyans are defeated once more. He cuts all their tails off too just to make sure. And with ease, he demolishes the rest of the army too, making it a lot easier for his allies. Although he looks around wondering where Yulong went, but he senses his power up in the sky, actually way beyond that. Yulong of course knows by now that he's able to survive in space. That's why he took the fight up here. And he can sense that down below all the enemies have been defeated. He's been stalling for time against Cooler here. He's come to see that Cooler doesn't really overpower him to a huge extent. He can't really get an estimate on Cooler's true strength. It's enough of a gap in power that Cooler's having a really easy time here, but not to the point where they have no shot at winning. Maybe if he could actually somehow tap into his full power here, that'll be what he needs to win, and that's why he went into space. He could use his power uninhibited here and not worry about destroying anything. At least that's what he thinks will happen. It still seems like he can't tap into that power, mainly because he doesn't have the focus for it right now. He'd need some time to power up and try and tap into it. He's never used it before, so he doesn't really know how far to go with it either. And those mental blocks are still kind of in place. It's not something he can correct by just chaining to the locale. It's something he's been struggling with for a while. He needs some sort of greater catalyst, or far more training. And Cooler could see there was no point in taking this fight to space. He wants to make sure Frieza could watch all his friends die too. So he launches right into his brother, hitting him with a powerful gut punch. He then spins around, kicking Yulong right down into the planet. Yulong's barely able to slow himself at the last moment. If he didn't slow himself down, he would have went right through the entire planet. Cooler turned him into a projectile to destroy the planet with. And just as Yulong gets back up, in the blink of an eye Cooler launches down on the planet, catching Yulong under his foot, stomping him further and further into the ground. The human fighters all jump in. Krillin flings a Kienzan at Cooler, but he simply grabs it, then takes it in both hands and snaps it in half. Although interestingly enough, he looks at his hand. There is a slight cut on it. Krillin thought that would do more, especially because he used Kaioken when making it, but it just barely scratched his hands even when he grabbed it. But Yulong sees that maybe he could use something like this to his advantage. A focused attack like that on his weak spot maybe. Chaozu then tries to use telekinesis to hold Cooler in place, with Yulong able to escape from under his foot. Quickly Cooler is able to break free from it and then launches right towards Chaozu. But then a Kikoho comes from above, protecting him, barely holding Cooler back. With Yamcha trying to attack from a distance with the Spirit Ball, the area is then illuminated with a red glow as Goku walks over, still in his Great Ape form. That red light suddenly shifts to a blue one, with the terrifying image of a Great Ape charging a Kamehameha. Everyone barely gets out of the way in time as he launches it right at Cooler, but Cooler simply jumps right through it. It does nothing to him, and he punches Goku right in the face, quickly looking around in the sky, seeing the artificial moon that the Saiyans created. He lifts up a finger, blowing it up. The unconscious Saiyans nearby begin to de-transform, with Goku also going back to his normal state. Thankfully he took his clothes off before transforming, otherwise he'd be fighting naked right now. But Goku then notes the injury that Cooler has, and he starts to go right for that. That's going to be their key to victory. Quickly he goes back into Kaioken, attacking him, but Cooler completely outspeeds him. And you can see what Goku's trying to do. The injury still is there, hurting him too. Not that the pain matters to him. He's incredibly durable, but he knows Frieza was trying to land a critical blow to some sort of organs there. Had Cooler not dodged in time, this would have done way more damage and left a massive hole in his chest. Even then he feels like he'd still be able to fight. It would just leave a much bigger weak spot for them to exploit. But especially with him transformed now, he doesn't even care about it. He thinks it's pathetic that they're even going after it. He says the Saiyan's power was impressive when he was a giant monkey, but now that he's just using whatever that red technique is, he's nothing to Cooler. Not that he would have been a massive problem before either, although that giant Kamehameha did scorch him a bit. With a single hit he knocks Goku down, then going after the others, but Yulong gets back up just in time, trying to protect them. He then creates his own destructor disc, flinging a barrage of them at Cooler, but Cooler dodges them pretty easily. But Yulong's able to control them remotely, making them chase Cooler around. But with a flick of his wrist, Cooler blasts all of them away, except for one that flies back at him, grazing the weak spot at his side, cutting a little deeper into it, and if that hit him directly it might have cut clean through him. What an impressive technique. Still, not enough though. He's done messing around. He lifts up both hands, forming them into finger guns. A barrage of blasts knocks everybody down. Not killing them just yet, but taking them out of the battle. Yulong's the only one able to barely stand up against this. An enraged Goku flies in, attacking Cooler with everything he's got. They just wanted peace. Why does Cooler need to come here to kill his brother? He's not a problem for Cooler anymore. He doesn't even really want to fight him. But since they have to fight here, Goku's going to make sure everyone's safe. He knows Yulong is stronger than him, but now it's his chance to protect Yulong. He's not going to let him get hurt. Yulong's always protected him. He needs to return the favor. Really? Cooler thinks it's interesting that he's that close with the Saiyan. He lifts up a finger once more, launching a death beam that flies right past Goku. Goku turns around and sees it go right through Yulong's chest, with the already weakened Yulong falling to the ground. Everything around them's destroyed. All his friends are fallen, and he's not even sure who's alive anymore. He can't even check if they're unconscious or actually dead. But seeing all of them strewn out like that, and now Yulong falling to the ground too, something snaps in Goku. Barely conscious on the other side of the battlefield, the Saiyans all feel something weird. The ground's shaking. They can't sense what's going on, but there's a brilliant golden glow nearby. Vegeta's barely able to prop himself up, and he sees what looks to be Kakarot. with a fierce golden aura around him. There's no way that's what he thinks it is. Even Cooler is briefly terrified. He's changed. But he realizes what this is. The legend, the Super Saiyan. Goku starts rapidly attacking Cooler, not even realizing he's changed. He makes sure to go right for the weak spot too. And slowly, he's chipping Cooler's health away. But Cooler's then able to recollect himself. For a brief moment, he was stunned by the Super Saiyan. Now that he's regained his senses, even though Goku was able to injure him a bit, Cooler could see that the Super Saiyan stands no chance against him. It's actually kind of funny. Cooler then grabs Goku by the neck. Nearby, Yulong's on the ground. He saw a bit of what happened, and he's proud of Goku for doing whatever that was. But he's more so shocked that whatever just happened didn't kill him. He always forgets the fact that he's so resilient because he rarely faces damage like this. But he has a hole right through his chest, and he's still able to fight. But his whole body is aching. He could barely stand up. But he manages to do so. This is the moment they can defeat Cooler. With Goku's help, they won't lose. But the second he gets up, the first thing he sees is Cooler holding Goku in the air, breaking his neck, and with another hand, blasting a hole right through his chest. He didn't expect the Super Saiyan to be that easy to kill. He thought he'd put up more of a fight. Sure, if Cooler hadn't trained, that would have been an issue for him. But his hard work is what brought him here. It created the first Super Saiyan, but also helped him easily kill the first Super Saiyan. And now he'll kill Frieza for good. He's already savored the moment, so he could finish the rest of them. Yulong feels like he's in a trance. He doesn't know what to feel. For the first time, he couldn't protect his friends. It's almost like he zones out for a bit, watching Goku fall to the ground lifeless. The adrenaline, the anger, the sadness. Something finally breaks within him. And it's not due to rage that he's unlocking this. His full power has always been there. He just never got past that mental barrier that he needed to get past. This entire time, he never realized he's only been fighting about 30 or 40% power. But seeing his friends near death like that, seeing Goku die like that, everything in his mind that was holding him back from using his full strength, there's no reason for that to be held back anymore. If Cooler destroys everything, there won't be anything left to protect. He can't keep thinking like that. Yulong's aura flares up. He bulks up considerably. This isn't a power derived from rage or anything. This is just him completely uninhibited. That mental block is broken. Yulong is now fighting at 100% power. But that's not to say he isn't feeling rage at the moment. He certainly is. He launches right into Cooler, tackling him into space. They launch into the depths of the solar system, fighting out in the vacuum. A bloody brawl ensues. Cooler's been weakened enough and Yulong's been powered up enough that they can actually fight evenly now. Yulong actually starts to do some real damage to him. Cooler's injured, he's bleeding, and this pushes Yulong even further. He could do it, he could win here. And that rage he felt at Goku's death, it's still there, but it partially subsides because he knows he can bring Goku back. He just has to make sure Earth is intact. He's recollected himself, but still he's fighting completely uninhibited. It's like he's controlling it somehow. He actually did it. The two continue to exchange blows, and every hit Yulong lands is for someone he wants to protect. Had it not been for Goku's brief intervention, Yulong might not be alive right now to do this. He thanks his brother. He's probably safe with King Kai somewhere, and he hopes he's watching what's about to happen. Yulong charges as much energy as he can in one hand, grabbing onto the bloody spot on Cooler's side, launching as much ki as he can into them, staggering Cooler, with Yulong grabbing his tail, swinging him around, slamming him into one of the nearby moons. On the rings of Saturn, weakened Cooler jumps back up, trying to charge his supernova, but Yulong plants his feet into one of the moons, propelling himself upwards with great speed. A Kamehameha is launched from his feet, speeding him up even further. Inspired by Goku, he performs a solar flare from Tenshinhan, blinding Cooler, and for the grand finale, his hands, they match the planet behind him, surrounded by their own rings. Small destructo discs that he made, taken from Krillin. In another life, these would be death saucers. Not that he'd even know that. He continues launching forward at full speed, with Cooler throwing down a barely charged supernova, but Yulong cuts right through it, and then cuts right through his brother, slicing Cooler clean in half. He then throws a barrage of the disc down below, cutting him into smaller pieces. He would have done this before, but he didn't have the opening, and now he does. But he knows how durable he and his brother are. Even dicing him like that, it probably didn't kill Cooler. Just like he destroyed everything Cooler stood for, he's gonna destroy every little bit of Cooler as well. If anything, Goku's his true brother. He doesn't need Cooler in his life. No one on Earth could really see what's going on because of how far it is, but even that far away they could sense Yulong's power, as he finishes everything off with a Kamehameha, incinerating whatever's left of Cooler. Krillin then notices some spaceships nearby. They don't have the energy to stop them, but it looks like the Saiyans are alive, and they were barely able to escape, with a huge explosion nearby too. It seems the Saiyans used whatever power remained to kill the soldiers that were still alive, just so they wouldn't be tracked down. A few minutes later, Yulong then enters the atmosphere, descending back down to the planet, bloodied, beaten, and barely conscious, but with a smile on his face. He did it. He used his full power. He protected everyone, and Earth is once more at peace. He then does lose consciousness, falling to the ground beside Krillin, Tenshinhan, Yamcha, and Chaozu. And Krillin's glad that he looks happy. He must have realized that they could bring Goku back. It was Yulong's first time experiencing death, and also remembering Shenron's great power. They realize that's probably not the entirety of Cooler's army. He still does have a father, too. But they're not worried. If this battle continues, the rest of it will be much easier. As everyone recuperates from Cooler's attack, the Dragon Balls are gathered too. For once, Yulong actually found use for the Dragon Balls. A while back he kept that one that he got basically as a novelty, but here he could use Shenron for once. Although it's probably good that this is the first time they've had to use Shenron for this. And hopefully the last time, with the wish being made to bring Goku back to life. It wasn't too big of a deal for him too, because he just spent that time with King Kai. It was only a few days he was dead, but still, it's good to be back. Now he has a new task. Try to unlock that same form again that he got before. He has no clue what it was, he just knows he transformed and got really strong. King Kai told him it might be some sort of legendary form called the Super Saiyan or something like that, but even he didn't really know for sure. Maybe that's why all the other Saiyans ran away. Goku's sure they'll come back someday. Eventually some more ships do arrive on the planet because not all of Cooler's army was there. This time it's a smaller group, but the people there are still pretty strong. It's the Ginyu Force and what looks to be someone related to Cooler and Yulong. That must be his father. Ten, Krillin, Yamcha, and Chaozu face the Ginyu Force. And it's actually not too tough for them, while Yulong goes to confront King Cold. Not even needing his full power. Cold says he hasn't come here to fight. He actually tries to appeal to his son. Especially with Cooler gone, he needs someone new to rule his army. He always wanted Frieza to be the one to do that. And he really should rejoin his family. But Yulong tells Cold that he's not family. He lets King Cold know both of his sons are dead, but he'll join them soon. Cold's confused by this because he's looking right at Frieza. In Yulong's eyes, Cooler actually did kill Frieza. He just didn't realize that it birthed Yulong in the process. King Cold chuckles at this. So he's still in denial. But really? Is he not just as cruel as Cooler? He killed his own family as well. He still has that blood within him. Maybe he still retains that cruelty and doesn't realize it. But amidst his taunts, he's silenced. A single blast from Yulong kills him. He goes over to the rest of the group and sees that they defeated the Ginyu Force as well. And in one last attempt at winning, Ginyu tries to body swap with Yulong. But Yulong simply glares over at them, and the ground below the Ginyu Force erupts, finishing them all off. Yamcha says those guys were pretty tough. Even that green guy, he had a pretty unique ability. Thankfully those abilities aren't in the hands of a stronger person. Otherwise they'd probably have some trouble. Yulong does take his training more seriously now, and his growth rapidly starts to accelerate. He knows himself now, and that self isn't Frieza. He could choose to do what he wants with his power. The curse of the strength from a tyrannical family will be a blessing for him, as well as his friends and Earth as a whole. The dreadful Cold family gave rise to Earth's strongest warrior, Yulong. And he's only just starting. He already has grown considerably, but now without those mental blocks he had before, and more motivation on top of that, he'll achieve new heights really quickly. A few more months passed. Even though the Red Ribbon Army was defeated, Jiro barely was able to make it out of there, and of course he wants revenge on Yulong. So he's been working on some androids. And he has way more data than before. And it's not just the quantity that's increased, it's the quality too. And this affects a lot of his current projects. He doesn't need to make as many androids because the first few that he makes, they're actually pretty successful. We'll be seeing this in a bit. Also around this time, there is no time traveler or heart virus. I'd say Goku lived a much healthier life in this scenario thanks to Grandpa Gohan never dying. He now actually lives with Goku at his home with Chi-Chi, Ox King, and Gohan, the other one. We don't know the direct cause of Goku's heart virus, but one popular theory about it is it came from how Goku lived as a kid, and it's just been dormant since then. He did kind of live like a wild animal after all, but thanks to his healthier lifestyle here, and not having to live on his own, we'll say he doesn't get the heart virus. At least according to that theory of its origin. Goku's got a happy home with a lot of people living there. As for Yulong, he still lives at Kame House. He's grown used to the lifestyle there, and it's pretty nice. And Roshi's glad to have him around too. One day while sitting on the beach, Roshi sees someone paddling on a boat, coming right to their island. Must be someone here for Yulong again, because this kinda happened a while ago, but it's died down ever since. Yulong's been out of the spotlight for a while, so this has happened less and less, but occasionally people would come here to try and train under him. But back then when this happened, he didn't really want to train anyone. Nor did Roshi at that time. Yulong then flies out into the ocean, grabbing the boat and taking it to shore. On the boat, there's a goofy-looking man who looks pretty terrified because his boat was just flying. And he looks at Yulong and doesn't really recognize him, asking if it's really him because he looks different. Yulong stops suppressing his power. He spends most of his time now in his final form. Oh yeah, he forgot that only his friends would really know who he is right now. This is a completely new look for him. The man on the boat introduces himself. His name is Mr. Saiyan, an up-and-coming martial artist aiming to become the strongest in the world. The 24th World Tournament hasn't happened yet, and Mr. Satan wants to win that. Assuming that Yulong's going to be there too, and he's going to have to fight him in the end. Oh yeah, Yulong completely forgot about that. Honestly, he doesn't really care about going again, because he knows he'll win anyways. They'll just have him fight whoever the finalist is. He's not sure if Goku's going to join either. Well, this is great for Mr. Satan. He's been dedicated to martial arts for a while, and he's been trying to seek Yulong for a while too. He saw his performance in the previous World Tournaments. This guy's really powerful, and he really wants to train under him. Yulong's pretty hesitant, but Mr. Satan starts begging basically. But still, Yulong's not really too sure because he could tell Mr. Satan's kind of doing this out of pride, just for the glory of it. He'll need a reason to actually train him. It takes a lot of convincing, and Mr. Satan follows Yulong around for days, proving that he's going to be a dedicated student. He knows he can't be the world champ without Yulong's guidance. Yulong's the previous world champ. Yulong is an idol to Mr. Satan. Ever since he was a kid, growing up as a martial artist, He and his classmates would always idolize Yulong, especially with him kind of being regarded as a hero. That's why he's here and so persistent about it. And eventually, Yulong gives in. He'll train him. But he's going to be pretty strict, and also, he does have to divide some time with another student he has. Yulong isn't completely dedicated to teaching. He hasn't really taught before besides his friends. And that was mostly him just training them. They were already seasoned martial artists. Mr. Satan is too, but to a different extent. He probably doesn't even know what ki is. But he introduces Mr. Satan to his other student, Gohan. This confuses Mr. Satan because how is he going to teach a kid and him at the same time? This kid has to be the same age as his daughter. And he's training under Yulong too? Actually, he has trained Gohan a bit already. Normally, Gohan would be training with Goku. But he's here at Kame House because he's getting some guidance from Roshi and Yulong as well. Goku thinks it'll be a great opportunity, especially because right now he's focused on getting Super Saiyan controlled. He already has trained Gohan a lot too, so getting some new perspective from Yulong might be a good thing for him. The strangest part for Mr. Satan is that Gohan seems way stronger than him. Sure, not as experienced as a martial artist, but this kid's really powerful, like freakishly powerful. Also, he has a tail for some reason. That scares him. But speaking of Goku, let's see what he's been up to. More time passes and he continues working on Super Saiyan. He's worked with Yulong on this too. Yulong is still much stronger than Goku, but Goku's closing the gap kind of. It's also good because Yulong could be a great punching bag to test Super Saiyan with. Nothing needs to be held back against him. As for Yulong, he's actually been able to tap into his full power without transforming into that bulky state. This was surprisingly quick to adapt to, and it's part of the reason he uses his final form all the time. Now he could adjust his power really easily in this form. He could use a small fraction of it or 100% of it, and he could swap between that within an instant. He's rarely in his first form anymore. Although, he kinda thinks his second form looks really cool, and it also makes him look taller, so he does prefer that. But he doesn't really use it as much because first of all it makes him look kind of intimidating, and second of all it's a big suppression of his power. But if there ever is a time where he's suppressed, he's usually in his second form now, just because of that. As for his third form, he never really touches that. That one's pretty terrifying. Also just a little too bulky for him. At least with his second and final forms, he looks human almost. Sure, maybe a bit intimidating in his second form, but handsome at least. With his final form also not being as scary. As a good person that's part of society, this is actually pretty important for him. He can't be freaking random strangers out. And after enough time has passed, Jiro finally activates some of the androids. He actually hasn't turned himself into an android here either. These androids have had some problems, mainly because he hasn't tested any others. With all the great data he's been getting, especially with the fact that he actually knows of Super Saiyan and Yulong's full power, Jiro's been pretty confident, so he stopped making androids after number 16, who he hasn't finished yet. And that confidence in the androids is a little bit of cockiness too. He activates his 3 most recent androids, and despite being fully mechanical, their sentience does pose some issues with their behavior, to the point where they think it's more effective to operate on their own, and they dispose of Jiro. Maybe he got a bit excited and activated them too soon. The only reason they even turn on him is because it's out of self-preservation. Jiro has been destroying his other androids, and these androids have data of that. They're loyal to Jiro's programming, but not Jiro himself. His desire for revenge got the best of him, and maybe he activated them a bit too early. So these 3 androids head out, aiming to kill Yulong and collect more data for the supercomputer in an effort to boost their own power as well as the next project, Cell. Once he awakens, they'll be unstoppable, but for now they'll prepare for his arrival. These 3 androids are androids 13, 14, and 15. Mr. Satan is training at Kame House one day with Gohan, sparring with him as Yulong watches from the roof. Mr. Satan's actually making some great progress. He can even control ki by now, not as effectively as Gohan, or anyone else for that matter. But still, this is way better than the average human already. Chaozu's also there on the island too, and he looks up in the sky and sees what looks to be people flying above them, but he can't sense their power. One of them's pretty large and one of them's kinda tiny. They fly directly above the island and then dart down, landing below, terrifying Mr. Satan. Yulong immediately tells everyone to get back because he can see the Red Ribbon Army logo on them. But he can't tell why he can't sense their power. When he destroyed the Red Ribbon Army, it was pretty impersonal. He didn't see the fact that they had androids. Thankfully, they spell it out for him. They're androids. Here to kill Yulong. Seeing this as a threat, Gohan then decides to fight. With Yulong about to stop him, but he's actually doing surprisingly well. He fights Android 15, and then Chaozu jumps in to fight Android 14. Mr. Satan's pretty terrified and almost jumps in to fight too, but it looks like those two have got it handled, so he sits back. But Yulong's a bit confused. If these are mechanical fighters made to kill him, how come Chaozu and Gohan are fending them off? These androids must not have enough data, combined with the fact that Gohan and Chaozu are much stronger than normal. Although the fight is pretty tough for them. They're fending them off, but still, it's pretty even, and the androids have infinite energy. Someone else then rockets over and finishes them off with 2 blasts. It's Goku, already in Super Saiyan. He sensed the fight going on and said it's good that they already had some people here, especially Yulong too. He was going to jump in if it got too dangerous, but after seeing Gohan's performance he decided maybe it would be good to let him fight a bit. Goku says Krillin, Tenshinhan, and Yamcha are with King Kai right now, so they can't come here, and Yulong briefs Goku on the situation. That sounds pretty scary, but if it was just these 2 androids, and they were that weak, is it really that big of an issue? Mr. Satan is hiding behind Kame House right now, pretty scared. But then he notices something weird. Coming towards the house, it looks like there's a man flying on the water. and just like those two androids, he can't sense him. Mr. Satan yells out that another android's coming. They see a pretty bright light too, as he launches a blast right at Kame House. In the nick of time, everyone then jumps in front of it, defending against the blast. The android then comes to the island and then picks up some pieces from the other androids too. But the second he does this, Yulong then tackles him, launching the two of them across the ocean as Chaozu, Gohan, and Goku follow. As Yulong and Android 13 make it to land, 13 comments that he's pretty surprised. These fellows must be stronger than he realized. Thankfully, 14 and 15 sent all that data to the supercomputer. But while on the secluded island, as well as the times they were at Kame's lookout training there, those were times Jiro couldn't get much data on them. The last bits of data he got were from the fights, the one with Cooler and the one with King Cold. So he got a lot of great info from those, but nothing else beyond that with their training. Yulong's able to fight off Android 13 pretty easily. The others then arrive and see it looks like he has this under control. Those other two were relatively weak, and Android 13 is definitely stronger, but still it looks like Yulong's got this. Until Android 13 pulled up those parts that he picked up. There's a reason he got those. He didn't expect to have to use this so soon, but it looks like he has no choice. And he merges his power with the other two androids, giving birth to Super Android 13. Maybe separately the androids wouldn't have been an issue, but now that their powers combined, Yulong starts fighting him, and this is a problem. He has to use 100% of his power. And this alone still isn't doing anything to Android 13. Goku jumps in to help. And as they fight, Android 13's fending them off, as well as getting data on them too, adapting amidst the battle. Gohan and Chaozu try to help out as well, but Android 13 fends them all off. This is exactly why he wasn't loyal to Jiro. Jiro should have just made him like this from the get-go. Look how strong he is. He's the strongest thing in creation. He hits Yulong with a powerful punch, breaking his arm, then turning to Goku and doing the same to him. But the two continue fighting and ignore it. It would be great if they had some senzu beans here, but this isn't going to stop them. Yulong tries to focus, trying to place all his ki in his arm, and slowly, he's able to heal that arm. He noticed that when Cooler transformed, he was able to heal a bit, and it seemed like he was able to do the same thing, at least to some extent. Yulong hasn't just been focused on power, he's been focused on other techniques like this too. So to some extent, he could heal his own injuries now. There's a limit to it, and it's a bit slow and requires a lot of focus. But as long as it's not anything too dire, he could at least do this during battle. As for Goku, thankfully he does have someone to help heal him. Yulong buys some time as Chaozu then goes over to Goku. He's trained with Kami a lot, and he's been kind of working on his psychic abilities too. Before it was basically just telekinesis that he used a lot, but now he has a lot more support abilities as well. He can't fully heal someone, but he could speed up the healing process in the body with psychic control. It's not as potent as a senzu bean, and it does drain the energy of the person he's using it on, but still, it's pretty useful and he aims to improve this. But he also has something else he was working on, and he was discussing with Gohan the fact that he wanted to use this during the battle. He hasn't tried it out in an actual combat setting yet, but here it could be useful. For a brief moment, he could boost everyone's power, but it has to be timed perfectly. It's basically like applying Kaioken to someone. Goku actually did think about using Kaioken with Super Saiyan, but never got around to it. But that's besides the point now anyways. This seems pretty helpful. An extra boost on top of what he's already got should be pretty nice. But Chaozu reminds them, it's a little draining and he can only do it temporarily, at least as of now. But he's going to use it on the other thing. As Yulong continues fighting, he then notices a resurgence of power. Goku feels empowered as well, and same for Gohan. For this brief moment in the battle, Chaozu brings out 200% of their power. They don't even feel injured at the moment, but they have to make use of it quick. Goku and Gohan jump in to help Yulong. 13's completely taken aback because he didn't expect something like this. Why are they stronger all of a sudden? He can adapt to their attacks, but not this. Even the supercomputer's confused. The three continuously attack Android 13, and right as Chaozu is about to lose focus of it, they launch their final attack. A simultaneous 200% Turtle School Kamehameha, completely destroying Android 13. But just like Chaozu said, this really did tire them out, and immediately they collapse to the ground, tired but victorious. Even Chaozu's a bit tired out too. He hopes he could improve that in the future, but Goku says he's really impressed. He didn't know Chaozu could do something like that. Same for Yulong with his limited regeneration. Not only is everyone around him growing stronger, but they're getting great support techniques as well. There is more to being a great fighter than just raw strength, and Goku can't wait to see where everyone goes next. Of course, Cell is still dormant too, but he won't arrive for a while. Still, the supercomputer is working with him and feeding all this data to him.
A few years pass. Out in space, Babidi is trying to plan what his next move will be. He has to find someone strong to help him revive Buu. He needs the energy, but he can't really find it anywhere. Although, he does have one good target. Earth seems to have some strong warriors now, so he could just use that planet. There should be enough energy there to help revive Buu. He's been going from planet to planet and hasn't had much success. Investigating most places, there's not really anything. Until one day, he and Dabura come across something interesting. Or rather, something comes to them. Within the same solar system they're in, Babidi could feel some sort of strong presence. And it's coming their way. It seems that someone can sense them. This could be a good opportunity, and Dabura gets ready. They were about to head out and go to those powers themselves, but instead, just let it come to them. 3 spherical space pods come through the atmosphere, and 3 Saiyans step off, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz. They've been out in space trying to grow stronger. They weren't really too sure what to do after their encounter with Yulong, although they've grown much stronger since then. They've been in this solar system recently, and they sensed Deborah's power pop up. It was hard to not notice it. They thought it might have been a threat coming their way, and now seeing these two up close, they wonder if these freaks are some part of Cooler's army. Even without Cooler or King Cold, there still has been some activity within the army, but nothing's really been happening with it otherwise. It's not really a friendly encounter, and it starts to escalate, with the three Saiyans then transforming, showing off Super Saiyan. It took them a while and they only just unlocked this, but still, it dramatically increases their power and really helps them in battle. Babidi says they should be really helpful, and sends Deborah in to fight them. Just from this fight alone he can gather energy, but Deborah kinda needs to fight them regardless, which is no problem for him. Even with Super Saiyan, it seems to not be enough. Deborah just is that strong. With the three of them combined, it makes it a little closer at least, but they're relying too much on their combined power and they can't really fight together too well as a group. They like to do their own thing, which works against them here, especially because they kind of go one by one. Raditz steps up first, gets his ass whooped, then Nappa, same thing, and then Vegeta, and then the three try to fight together, and still, they collectively lose. They intended to go back to Earth to defeat Frieza and Kakarot. Even with his memory loss, they don't trust Frieza existing, and they need to prove that they're superior to Kakarot as well. But now they've encountered their first obstacle. It looks like they're not going to get to Earth anytime soon. Deborah defeats the three of them, and then Babidi steps in. He got a good amount of energy from that, but he doesn't want to waste it just yet. And he just had a really good idea. He could turn them into his minions. But he has an even more wicked idea than that. He tries to take control, and they're very easy to take control of due to their evilness. Sure, they might have changed a bit, but barely enough. Not only will it be harder for them to resist Babidi, but it's going to be easier to give into that temptation of power. But the other plan Babidi has is to have them fight each other. Sure, having them as minions is great, but what if he just speeds up the process and has them fight? Instead of waiting for someone to come his way, have them fight each other. The Saiyans aren't fully under Babidi's spell, but it's not like Majin and Vegeta either where he could do whatever he pleases. They were much more susceptible to his spell due to their evil, and much weaker. So Babidi actually has a greater control on them. But the idea he has in mind is to just have them fight each other. He won't face much resistance from that because he's essentially training them after giving them great power. They're much more impressionable thanks to that. It benefits them as training this way, but also slowly gives energy to Babidi. And Deborah commends Babidi. This is a splendid loophole. Also, he's glad he's not being used as a punching bag for it. Babidi thinks this might be a slower process, but it should be able to work. He thinks that if he turn the possession on and off, then he can gather energy from them. Like for example, have Vegeta fight Raditz, and turn off the spell for Raditz so he can get energy from Raditz. Or if that doesn't work, worst case, he trains them up even further, and then uses them as batteries, just using the energy suction device. So if the first option doesn't work, the second one definitely will. Either way, it's a great option because it's a fast way to get energy. And Deborah is sure to keep them in check as well. Around the same time, Yulong's at Kame House. He's continuing his training with Mr. Satan. He actually won the most recent tournament, and eventually after winning, he asked Yulong if he could help train someone else. Yulong doesn't really want to take on any other students, but after seeing Mr. Satan's success, he actually is pretty inclined to do so. Mr. Satan's become a really strong warrior, and now he brings another student to the island, his daughter Videl. Oh, Yulong didn't expect another kid. So now he has 3 students and 2 of them are kids. He doesn't want this to turn into a daycare. But he gets along well with Gohan, and having Videl there seems to be a good thing. She shows some promise. Gohan and Videl of course become friends here. Although Gohan doesn't spend all his time training with Yulong, he spends a lot more time training with Goku now. He's achieved Super Saiyan by himself. And by this point in the story, he and Goku have ascended to Super Saiyan 2. Partially thanks to Yulong, also helping both of them out. He's unlocked some great new power for himself too, but hasn't really had a chance to use it yet. Someone then teleports onto the island, specifically requesting Yulong's help. He introduces himself, the Supreme Kai Shin. He's known about Yulong for a while, especially with the fact that he's Frieza, or at least formerly was Frieza. And knowing now that he's a good guy, maybe he could help out here. And he explains what's going on. A threat named Majin Buu is about to be revived, and they need someone to stop him. Yulong's the strongest person out there, so they need his help. Shin's grateful that he dealt with Cooler and King Cold, but Yulong says that wasn't for any particular reason. They came to attack him, and he was just defending himself. He didn't seek them out to be a hero, he actually avoided the conflict there. And Shin understands that, but he explains how big of a threat Majin Buu will be if he's revived. They've been monitoring Babidi for a while, and he seems to have just stopped in one place, which signifies that he might be gathering energy. They don't have all the details just yet, because they didn't want to get too close and spoil their operation. They're getting intel on him, but they can't get too much. He has a hunch Babidi's going to make a move soon, but he doesn't know about the Saiyan specifically. And you know what? Yulong will go for it. It seems like this guy's going to just destroy everything regardless, so it looks like he'll have to step in either way, and it's better to solve it now than later. Plus, it might be a good challenge for him. He wonders if he could finally use his full strength in a battle. Cooler and Android 13 were the only ones who made him do that. But Cooler was definitely the bigger challenge. By the time Android 13 came around, he was defeated pretty quickly, and Yulong has grown far beyond that former limit. So, now it's time to test out that power. Shin takes him to the planet Babidi's on. And of course, Babidi's pretty taken aback. He didn't expect to see the Supreme Kai here. But it makes sense because he wasn't really lying low. Although it's interesting who he brought along with him. He's been studying Cooler's army for a while because that could have been a great target. And he actually does know about Yulong. They must be really desperate, but it's fine. Any moment now, Buu will be revived. A key blast is then sent from the distance, aimed at Shin. Yulong quickly steps in the way, guarding against it. He's barely damaged by it, not even really phased, and Dabura then flies over from the horizon, starting to attack Yulong. Shin tells him to end the fight quickly, and Babidi interjects. What, is he worried about Buu being revived? It's already too late. Thanks to Dabura's intervention, that gave him just a little bit more energy. He's at 99% right now. The first strategy he had in mind kind of worked, but he ended up switching to making the Saiyan's batteries, and Babidi then teleports himself away. With a single blast, Yulong kills Dabura, and then flies around trying to find Babidi. It's a shame he has to do it like this, but it's not a big deal. Babidi gives a little of his own energy to Buu, with the meter going from 99% to 100. A giant cloud of steam explodes over the horizon. Yulong can clearly see it, and he rushes over with Shin. And Shin's confused. How did he get unleashed so quickly? What has he been doing here? It would have taken a lot of energy to revive Buu. He only stopped on this planet a few weeks ago. And now Buu's already here? Well, looking at how quickly Yulong defeated Dabura, maybe Buu won't be too big of an issue. Of course, Buu is way stronger than Dabura, but he doesn't really have a gauge of Yulong's power. He defeated Dabura in one shot with no effort, so it will be interesting to see how this pans out. Yulong arrives and sees Babidi laughing as Buu's revived, standing there in all his glory. This guy's kind of annoying. Yulong lifts up a finger, launching a death beam at Babidi. Quickly he throws up a barrier, but the beam is strong enough to go through the barrier, with Babidi feeling a microsecond of fear, realizing that he's dead, as the beam goes right through his head. Shin's a bit terrified, but still amazed. They should be in good hands with Yulong. Yulong cracks his neck and gets ready for the battle, with Buu also seeming in good spirits. The two begin their fight, and Yulong adapts pretty quickly, learning that Buu could regenerate quick. And Shin watches on completely intrigued. The way Yulong fights is amazing. He seems to be a master fighter in general. Everything about the way he fights is amazing. He has no wasted movements at all. He fights so calmly, but at the same time with purpose. His attacks are delivered with calmness, but it has the full force of his power behind them. It's just natural to him. And Yulong turns to Shin just wanting to confirm something. Does Buu have any transformation or something? As far as Shin knows, he doesn't. Well, he's actually supposed to be in a different form, Kid Buu, but Shin doesn't know if he's going to transform beyond this. Yulong says that's a shame. He wanted a chance to use his full power, but doesn't really have an opportunity here. Shin asks what he's saying, and Yulong says that he's holding back. And as he is right now, he's going to be able to win here. He just wanted to see if the fight could become more interesting before he finishes it off right now. Quickly, he charges a Kamehameha, fanning the blast out so it completely encapsulates Buu. A blast so powerful that Shin is knocked back, and he's not even close to Yulong right now. The entire planet's shaking, and it feels like the whole solar system is illuminated by the light of it. With that one blast, Majin Buu is defeated. How did Yulong get so strong? Well, it really comes down to his mind by this point. As we discussed earlier in the series, he had trouble accessing his latent potential. He wasn't really himself, and it was a pretty long journey for him, but eventually he came to terms with himself. He's mastered his own mind, body, and heart. He's completely in tune with his spirit. He has no doubts about who he is, what his purpose is, everything. He has a completely refined mentality. He accepts himself, and even with his tumultuous past, he found his own identity and the importance of that. He knows who Yulong is, and he's confident about that. Combine that with the mastery over everything else, and he's finally been able to harness that potential that he has, no longer held back by amnesia, self-doubt, or his past. Although, it's a shame that he couldn't use his full power here. He really wanted to use his new form against Buu, but that could wait for later. Shin takes him back to Earth and is grateful for his help, and Yulong thanks him for the early warning. Better to deal with it now than have to deal with it later on Earth. It was pretty cool to meet another god, even if Yulong was way stronger than that god. Although this won't be the last god he meets. Much earlier than normal, years before normal actually, Beerus awakens from his slumber. He's a bit groggy because that nap was kind of short, but Whis reminds him. He set these alarms for now for a specific reason. Oraclefish told him of a rival arriving at this time. And yeah, Beerus actually remembers now. It seems to be something related to the Cold Empire. Before he went to sleep, he actually knew of a strong warrior on Earth. All along, he knew that his rival would be Frieza. Of course, he had a chat with Cooler before destroying Planet Vegeta. And he knew everything about Cold's army, and the fact that Cooler actually had a brother, one who was supposed to be stronger than him. He would have sought out Frieza sooner, but he wanted to wait a bit. Especially because Oraclefish told him that by this point he would be a true rival, with Whis telling him everything that Yulong's been up to, and the fact that he's not Frieza now. It seems that time on Earth really changed him. Plus, he has a strong group of friends too, including a Saiyan there. What an interesting development. He quickly heads to Earth, finding his way to Kame House. Mr. Satan and Videl are terrified. They just want to train. What's with all the gods showing up here? But Yulong's not too taken aback. He's pretty cordial with Beerus and Whis, and they return that. Roshi and Chaozu are with Videl and Mr. Satan, watching from inside the house. Roshi wonders what it is about Yulong that attracts all these gods here, and just all these strong fighters in general. Chaozu thinks it's pretty amazing, actually. To be so strong that people are coming from all over the universe just to face him. At least that's what he thinks is going to happen here with Beerus and Whis. Why else would they be here? Beerus says he's honestly surprised. Someone from the Cold Empire survived. But Yulong says he swore them off a while ago. Actually, he didn't even know about them for decades, and by the time he did, he disowned them, so he never really was part of that. By blood, yes, he's related to them, but he's an Earthling now. Beerus understands he goes by the name Yulong now too, truly a testament to the fact that he's not his brother. And that should be interesting, someone with the power of Cooler or King Cold, but a gentle heart and mind. Not to mention, he beat Cooler and King Cold. Beerus really wants to face him. So the two of them go up into the sky above Kame House and begin fighting. He tells Yulong they could skip the formalities and just go to full power. Well, Beerus isn't going to go full power, but Yulong can. He wants to make this quick and try out some food here on Earth. He knows nothing about it, but he smelled something good from inside Kame House. He just wants to see Yulong's full strength. And Yulong's not really sure, but against someone like Beerus, he should be fine. He can't sense Beerus' power. But if he really is that strong, he should be able to give Yulong a good fight and handle his full strength. He's made this power his own. He's turned his curse into a gift. And now, this form that he's in right now, it's not even considered his final form. This is simply his true state. He's molded his 100% power into this. And this is just him, but now he has an actual transformation beyond it. Not a suppression, not full power, but a completely separate form. And he's really excited to show it off. It reminds him of Goku, honestly. A man who's pushed him so far in life. He's glad to have his own transformation just like Goku.
And you know, thinking of Goku makes him wonder what happened with those Saiyans. Probably nothing to worry about. He's sure they'll cross paths again someday.
He begins powering up, and there's an immense increase in power. Even Beerus is impressed. Not much changes about his physical appearance except the color of him. And the transformation isn't really too explosive, but the aura around him is dense, almost tangible, taking on a greenish teal color, a pleasant and soothing hue, and Yulong fully reveals the new form to Beerus. It's a strange form with a greenish tint to it, welcoming Beerus to finally fight him.
Yulong showcases his newest form. Beerus finds the green hue interesting. Yulong actually chose this color himself. He kinda liked it. It felt very serene, to say the least. This form is Jade Yulong. The reason I chose this color and name is because his namesake is the Jade Dragon. As discussed in part 1, we'll be using that for this form. This is essentially his equivalent to the golden form, just a different color. Since apparently Frieza was able to choose the color of the golden form, so Yulong chose the color of this one. He almost went with golden in honor of Goku, but he'd rather do his own thing and make his own form. This way, it's more unique. The two start fighting. Of course, Beerus is way ahead of Yulong, but still, Beerus is impressed with his strength. He really is powerful and definitely is the strongest mortal that Beerus knows. Granted, he's still holding back, but hey, he has to do that against everybody. He tells Yulong for what it's worth, this is the least he's ever held back against a mortal. Still holding back a lot though. And he's proud of this. Eventually he'll return to Earth, but for now he's gonna go back to his planet. So Yulong doesn't immediately go there to train. Although Beerus does say he would like Yulong to come to his planet the next time he comes here. It'll be a win-win for the both of them. Beerus will have a rival and Yulong will have a rival, because obviously he's been looking for someone strong to challenge. And he agrees to this, but he does have a condition. He wants to bring Goku along. Goku's been his rival recently, and Goku's been around for a good chunk of his life. Since Goku has surpassed his Earthling rivals, he's been in a weird spot where none of them could really challenge him, but also Yulong was still too strong for him. So Yulong wants to pay it forward. This way he can help Goku grow stronger as well. And Beerus is sure that he can make that work. Maybe a Saiyan could be an interesting rival too. It's better to have two than one after all. And it might encourage Yulong to grow even further, so yeah, he accepts it. A few months pass and eventually Yulong does end up going to Beerus' planet with Goku. And the two go back and forth between there and Earth. But before leaving there, Yulong actually picked up a new hobby back on Earth. After all this time of basically having no hobbies, he came to see that all he really did for hobbies was training and training other people. He needed something else in his life. And he remembered. He had that huge collection of funds that he got from when he was the World Tournament champion all those years ago. It's not like he had the need to spend that. He was never a big spender and he just lived at Kame House anyways. But something within him clicks when he thinks about this. It's like he was naturally born to be good at making money because he instantly sees something he can do with it. He gets really into investments. That's right, he becomes a day trader. Whereas Frieza obviously owned a great empire and was a pretty good businessman, Yulong here instead still finds a good way to make his money, and it feels kind of in line with what Frieza would do, while also not being what Frieza would do, aka being a genocidal tyrant that steals planets. He really likes the chaos of trading his money. It quells his boredom when he's on Earth and not doing anything else. And since he has nothing to do with the money anyways, he becomes kind of a philanthropist. Mostly anonymous, he likes being low-key. He still does train Mr. Satan, but when he's on Earth, Videl and Gohan have basically gone off on their own, and of course the two became a thing together. They've grown a good amount, but they're going to train on their own now. And especially with school, they can't spend as much time on it anymore. So this is a good way for Yulong to pass the time. This really comes naturally to him. And he does make a good amount of money off it. In one of the time periods where he's actually on Beerus' planet, some people at Kame House notice the sky go dark one day. Mr. Satan wonders what's happening, but Roshi and Chaozu can immediately tell what's happening. Someone summoned Shenron, but that makes no sense at all. Who did it and why? Others across Earth notice it too. And anyone familiar with the Dragon Balls immediately knows what happened. Maybe some random person found the Dragon Balls, so maybe it's fine. But it wasn't any random person, or random group for that matter. The group that found it was actually Cooler's army. They are still around, and they found it weird that Goku was alive again. When King Cold eventually came to Earth, some of them noticed that Goku was there. From what they heard, he apparently died to Cooler before. So they began looking into it, and eventually found out about the Dragon Balls. They've always been a rumor, and this just confirmed it. So they did the best thing they could think of. They found the Dragon Balls and used the wish to revive Cooler. By the way, it's only one wish because Kami is still Guardian here. They haven't been upgraded to 3 wishes yet. So thankfully that's all they wished for, but then they realize, damn, they could have just revived the entire army, which would have included King Cold and all the other soldiers that died. You know what? Sorbet says it's fine. They just need Cooler. That's all. And Cooler is pretty glad to be back. He does want to prepare this time. He wants to train even further. He's sure Frieza and Kakarot have grown a lot stronger, so he might need years of training as well, because that's what they had. But he'll fully devote himself to it. No matter what, he will grow stronger and will defeat them. But only a few weeks after his revival, the Cooler force is ambushed. There's only 3 assailants. They heard that Cooler was back and decided they wanted to get involved. And it's 3 very familiar faces: Raditz, Nappa, and Vegeta. After Babidi died, they regained control of themselves, although it seems like they kept some of the boost that they got from his power. They're just glad that Yulong didn't kill them. But now, Cooler's back, so obviously that's an issue. But they recently did unlock a new form, so it should help them out here. As soon as they infiltrate the base, the 3 of them immediately go Super Saiyan 2. Cooler gets ready to fight and Vegeta launches at him. The 2 briefly battle, but it's clear that Vegeta's ahead of Cooler. Cooler has grown a bit, but he's only had a few weeks to train. And Vegeta's obviously not the strongest Saiyan, he's not on Goku's level. But with Super Saiyan 2, he actually is able to pull ahead, and he kills Cooler, with Raditz and Nappa destroying what's left of Cooler's army. Without even realizing it, they kinda just protected him. The 3 don't care about taking over an empire or anything, they just want Cooler gone. They don't want to deal with any sort of threats, which includes Frieza and Kakarot too. And killing Cooler kind of reinforces their evil nature. Like, they're not maniacs, but by this point they're still not great people. Especially with them being secluded in space with each other for so long, they're obviously still pretty chaotic. Thankfully Cooler was easy pickings. Frieza's of course on their radar, but he still seems too powerful. Especially after he defeated Buu, they realize that they're not going to be able to do anything against him. That'll have to come later. Following their space drive-by, they just leave. Nothing is left of the space, and that was the last bits of the Cooler force. All the soldiers, scientists, everything. Everybody's gone. Well, kind of. For good measure, they blow up the planet that they're on, with the mangled body of Cooler launched into space. But he's not dead. His great durability allowed him to survive. He's unconscious and barely hanging on, but alive nonetheless. He drifts out into the emptiness of space, still surviving. Is this how Frieza felt when Cooler tried to kill him all of those years ago? Completely helpless and drifting aimlessly. He fades in and out of unconsciousness. He can't believe this happened. This might just be how he dies. But after a few days, something small latches onto him, and he wakes up on a nearby moon. He's in a crater, but not a normal crater. It's like he actually landed here purposefully. The crater below him is just missing a little bit of material. In his fight with the Saiyans, he lost his legs and one of his arms. But now they're back. Almost like the material below him got turned into these parts. At first he's confused, but then the data goes into his head. He was saved by the Big Getty Star. And he's been repaired. This is the birth of Mecha Cooler. Not completely metal. Cooler himself is actually still alive, but with the Big Getty Star, he could probably make clones of himself, metal Coolers. This will be fun. The Universe 6 tournament happens a lot earlier than normal, since everything else has happened earlier. They pretty quickly select a team. Goku, Yulong, Tenshinhan, Krillin, and Mr. Satan. Obviously they have other people they could have recruited too. Chaozu, Gohan, Videl, Yamcha, even Roshi, maybe even Goten, who I haven't mentioned much here, but he's still here. But they have a pretty good setup here. The first person fighting is Mr. Satan versus Batamo, and Mr. Satan actually wins this fight. He does still bluff about his power because he's obviously not the strongest in the group, but the difference here is he actually is strong. Thanks to training under Yulong, he's powerful. He knows how to use Ki. He's not even the strongest of the Earthlings, but he's at least close to them. Probably having as much physical power as someone like Chaozu, who also is stronger in this scenario obviously. Chaozu is actually in the stands watching, and he's glad to see Mr. Satan doing so well. He spent a lot of time with him at Kame House and is glad to see this growth. Obviously Yulong's really happy too. Then Mr. Satan fights Frost. This guy looks just like Yulong, at least how he used to look like. He doesn't use that first form anymore. He fights Frost in his first form, but knows he probably has more power. And then Frost goes into his assault form and wins that way. The next fight is Yulong versus Frost. Frost goes back into his first form, and Yulong goes to his first form too. Frost finds it strange. Why is he holding back? Well, Yulong assumes he's holding back, so until Frost shows his full power, he's gonna hold back his full power as well. Yulong easily is ahead of Frost here. So Frost then goes into his final form. So Yulong goes back into his final form. Of course, one-shotting Frost. But the second he one-shots Frost, he feels strange. Frost is knocked out of the ring and then Yulong goes unconscious. He got poisoned and didn't even realize it. Well, not until after the fact. But you know, it kinda makes sense that Frost is evil. Yulong knows who he once was supposed to be, and it looks like Frost might have had a similar upbringing. He seems good on the surface, but unlike Yulong, it's an act. It's like facing a ghost of his former self. When it's revealed later on that Frost had poison, which is why Yulong lost, Mr. Satan declares that's why he also lost. It actually wasn't the reason, but hey, it's a good way to save face. Goku's up next against Vegeta. He's really excited to showcase his new forms. First Super Saiyan God, then Super Saiyan Blue, but none of them work against Vegeta. Not a great first impression, but he finds out how to get Vegeta out of the ring. Then facing Kappa, interested to see another Saiyan. But his godly forms are overkill, so he only can use his base form and Super Saiyan. Even Super Saiyan's kind of overkill though. Of course he wins this battle. Next up he faces Hit. He's really bummed out because here he's able to use Super Saiyan Blue again, but it doesn't really do much against Hit. Goku is able to predict Hit's moves. But again, this is earlier on in the story. Plus, he didn't get the extra 3 years of training in the time chamber. Yulong didn't go in with him, and he didn't decide to go in the first place. Not to mention the time chamber was never upgraded. Point being, Goku is understandably weaker here than the actual Universe 6 tournament, but in terms of this point in the story, he's way stronger than he should be. It's just that for this tournament, it's not enough. Especially without Blue Kaioken, so he loses against Hit. Ten and Krillin then have to fight. They've grown a lot stronger and have some pretty impressive showings, but they're not going to do anything against Hit, obviously. Then Mr. Satan goes back up, declaring that he wants to go last because it feels like he has a stomachache. That poison might still be in effect, which is weird because Yulong feels fine. Maybe Mr. Satan got a higher dose. So, Yulong faces Hit, and he's able to win here with his Jade form. This is a really good showcase of his power because this is the first time he fights an opponent on his level. At least close to it. He is ahead of Hit. But there's no one else that was really able to challenge his form. Goku's getting kind of close. Super Saiyan Blue is strong, but he still has a long way to go. The only other person he ever fought in this form was Beerus, who is way ahead of him, obviously. So he doesn't end this fight right away because he actually wants to have fun here. But he's able to predict Hit's moves, and the combination of his power, his strategies, and his martial arts mind, that all helps him win here. With Beerus being nice enough to restore Earth in Universe 6. There's another passage of time here. Now we're in age 779, right before when Resurrection F is supposed to take place. Obviously, that doesn't happen here. Well, kind of it does, I guess. More so, Resurrection C. Nothing's happened so far, and no one ever figured out what Shenron was used for. The Saiyans found it really weird that Cooler was back. They don't know how he came back in the first place, but they never really questioned it. They assumed maybe he just survived against Frieza and somehow got healed. They could have sworn he died, but probably not. Maybe they were just wrong. But now they're sure he's dead. Vegeta was the one to kill him, and he knows he finished the job. Obviously he didn't. Cooler escapes death once more. And after all these years have passed, he feels like he's ready. He's trained. His regular body has cybernetic parts, but he can clone himself infinitely as well. And the Big Yeti Star really does help him. And Cooler's completely in control here. It's not like in the Metal Cooler movie where it's just like a small piece of him being controlled by the Big Yeti Star. Cooler actually has most of his body. His whole brain is intact. This is just a cyborg Cooler. But the Big Yeti Star gave him some great abilities. First of all, regeneration. Granted, it's mechanical, but still, regeneration. It gives him adaptive growth. It's a perfect combination. His great physical power and advanced technology. The Big Yeti Star has really helped him train and grow. He knew Frieza was born as a mutant, and he's just naturally gifted, but this gives him the boost in strength he needs. He doesn't know how strong Frieza is now, but knowing how quickly he should have grown, Cooler thought it might take decades to catch up, solely from his own hard work. But the Big Yeti Star rapidly accelerated him. Not to mention, he's unlocked a new form as well, and he's sure that Frieza's gonna love it. Plus, he's gonna face an entire army of Metal Coolers. That'll be fun. He'll be sure to find those Saiyans again as well, but Yulong's the first priority. As for that other Saiyan on Earth, the one that Frieza's friends with, he was fodder to Cooler before, and he'll be fodder again. Cooler sets out to find his brother once more. We don't have anything with Zamasu here. So, after the Universe 6 tournament, we immediately skip that. But in its place, we have something else. Roshi's chilling at Kame House. He sees a weird report on the news. There's some giant structure coming towards Earth. Everyone's panicking, but it's coming at a slow rate, so it doesn't look like it's going to destroy Earth, just land on it. Almost like it's a giant alien ship. He calls over to Yulong, and the first thought he has is that it has something to do with the Saiyans. They are still out there in space. Maybe this is them counterattacking somehow, but he has no clue of what's going on. Naturally, this concerns everyone, so they all group together. A pretty large group goes over to where the ship is supposed to land. We have Goku, Gohan, Videl, Mr. Satan, Tenshinhan, Krillin, and Chaozu. And of course Yulong. They watch from a distance as the mass lands on the planet. Then Chaozu's attacked by something. He counters instantly and destroys it, but then realizes what he did. What he just fought looks exactly like Cooler, but made of metal. Another one appears, attacking 10. One goes after Mr. Satan, and with a dynamite kick, he knocks Metal Cooler's head clean off. With Videl also facing one on her own too. More and more start to appear, but none are attacking Yulong. They clearly do look like Cooler, but at the same time they're not Cooler. They're artificial, and there's a very few of them at first. And they're not too powerful, but more start to appear. Soon enough, there's one fighting every person. And then they multiply, there's two for every person. Videl brings up the fact that the Dragon Balls were used before. She and Mr. Satan have only heard about Cooler, never seen him. So this is a first for them. But everyone else was sure that Cooler's dead. So maybe the Dragon Balls brought him back somehow, but that doesn't explain this. Yulong puts two and two together. Cooler's back, and it has something to do with that giant mass of whatever over there. He's gonna go over to that because it seems like the epicenter, and ask if everyone else can hold off these clones for a bit. While the Metal Coolers are growing in numbers, as well as strength, they should be able to fight them off for a little bit longer. With the group fighting the Metal Cooler army, they decide to conserve their strength. From what Goku can tell, it seems that every time they destroy one of the metal coolers, they learn from that and grow from it. Krillin says it's best to take their time. They're not in a rush to destroy them, at least not right now. And they're only making things worse by going quickly, so they pace themselves. But then when they try and do this, more metal coolers spawn, compensating for strength with numbers. Krillin tells everyone to get together in a circle. He has a pretty good idea. He asks Chaozu if he can buff him just for a little bit. They let more of the coolers spawn, trying to keep their distance. And then Chaozu buffs Krillin, but this time it's way higher than when he did it with Goku and the others. He's gotten a lot stronger, and now he can buff them up to 1000%. So Krillin of course feels a massive boost in strength. He only needs it for one attack. He creates a massive Kienzan above him, and then spins it around, rapidly circling the group, destroying any metal coolers that come close. He just wanted the boost to create the attack, but he could spend as much time as he wants directing it, wiping out dozens of metal coolers in an instant, and not just slicing them, but channeling energy through them in order to prevent regeneration. Some of course go around the Kienzan, coming from above, so the rest of the group focuses on protecting there. This way they should buy some time, with Goku also flying up in the air, directing some of the coolers towards him and just destroying them with ease, only using Super Saiyan. Looks like he doesn't need blue just yet. But then one of the coolers comes towards him with way more power than the others, and the weird thing is Goku can actually feel energy coming from him. The Kienzan Krillin is controlling then disappears, as the cooler fighting Goku glares at it, destroying it in an instant. All the metal coolers stop around him, and it's pretty clear now that this is actually Cooler, weirdly enough with some metal parts of his own. It looks like Yulong went to the core. That's good for him. Cooler will spend his time getting rid of the others, and hopefully the core will just absorb Yulong, getting his power as well. His brother will make a fine battery. Goku tries fighting Cooler with Super Saiyan, but it's not enough. Cooler says he's far outgrown that form. If the Saiyan really wants to fight him, he's gonna need more than that. Goku didn't realize that Cooler's gotten this much stronger. Obviously, he didn't even know Cooler came back in the first place. And Cooler decides to humor the group. He came back and almost died again, but the big Getty Star helped him cheat death and made him better than before. He commands an army of infinite coolers, although when he's away from the core, it's a little bit harder to operate them. But thankfully it basically runs on autopilot, and by separating himself from the core, he gets to act freely. The big Getty Star doesn't control him, it's the other way around. Goku jumps into Super Saiyan God and starts fighting Cooler seriously, and that sort of keeps up with him, but it's not doing much, especially as Cooler shows more of his own strength. The worst part is he's not even in his final form yet. They saw it before, so he goes into blue, and now Cooler's actually having some fun. But at brief points when Goku attacks him, he flares up into Kaioken, conserving his strength by not using it the entire time and only at the moment of attack. And with Kaioken, he actually is able to damage Cooler, at one point, even punching right through his chest. But it's the metallic part, and it just regenerates. He grabs Goku's arm, swings him around over his head, and then throws him down to the ground. On second thought, he's not going to waste time with these people. That brief fight with Goku gave him a bunch of great data, so that's going to help the metal coolers. He summons more around them, and says he'll be right back. Then teleporting over to where the big Getty Star's core is. One of the many great tricks he's picked up over these past few years. Yulong is currently swarmed by an army of them, but they're not really a big deal. Although they suddenly get a lot stronger thanks to Goku's data. Yulong then senses something near him, quickly turning around and blocking a punch. Seeing his brother face to face once more. Cooler says it's good to see him again. Obviously, Yulong's not amused. He doesn't care how or when Cooler got back, he just wants to get this over with. He just wants to win the fight quick, and not waste any more time with everyone at risk. He holds a hand out towards the big Getty Star's core, launching a powerful blast at it, with Cooler then teleporting in front of it and swatting it away, urging his brother to not underestimate him. But fine, he'll humor his brother, going into his final form. It looks the same, but a bit shinier than normal, with him being coated in a thin layer of armor. Just a side effect of him being Mecha Cooler now, making it clear that he's the leader of the Metal Cooler army. The two briefly fight like this, and Yulong is actually pushed back. Their final form seems somewhat evenly matched, but Cooler has the advantage of having the big Getty Star with him. Of course, his adaptation isn't instant like the other Metal Coolers. Because he's only partly mechanical, he does get data from the big Getty Star, but he has to manually apply that himself. Being assimilated for so long, it's a little bit easier at this point, but it's not instant. And he also does have regeneration, which is great, not to mention the armor around him. So during battle, slowly but surely, he's growing, and a gap arises between them. Thankfully, Yulong has his own regeneration, even taunting Cooler a bit. His isn't mechanical, he could just do this on his own. And after all these years, he's gotten better with it as well. This brief battle ends with a beam clash, and Yulong's ready to end this, so he quickly goes into his Jade form. But the light from his aura is suddenly swallowed. The area around them grows dark. A strange aura generates around Cooler, but instead of making light, it swallows him. He's not the only one with a new form. Cooler proclaims that he came back from hell just to kill Yulong, and he almost got sent there once more. He's cheated death twice, and he won't come close to it again. The metallic sheen around him changes to almost a matte color. With the matte color and the area going dark, Cooler almost looks like just a shadowy figure, only slightly illuminated by his glowing eyes. This is Mecha Cooler with the black form. And with his unique mutation as Mecha Cooler, we'll call this Fanta Black Cooler. The real fight starts now. Yulong's actually being pushed to his limit once more, and of course it's by his brother. He's having a bit of deja vu here. But he knows he could win this. Although, strangely enough, amidst the battle, he could feel wires start to grab at his legs. This is really nothing, he could break free from them easily. But every time it happens, even for a brief second, Cooler feels a bit empowered by it. Yulong's not sure why, but then he sees. The Big Yeti Star sends parts up to him. Ki from Yulong is being taken, and being sent back to Cooler. So he starts fending off the wires, as well as destroying any of the parts that come towards Cooler. But this distracts him, and it lets Cooler get attacks in. He can't do everything at once. If Cooler grows any stronger, they're doomed. But then a blue and red light darts across the battlefield, and Yulong feels a familiar energy. It happened so fast that he barely saw it. But Goku launched over, punching right through Cooler's side, using Blue Kaioken times 20 with Chaozu on his back, giving him a 1000% increase. Cooler moved at the last second, but still, he did a good amount of damage. He hit Cooler in the same exact spot where Yulong once damaged him a while back. But he's not done yet. With Chaozu still on his back, he charges a Kamehameha, firing at Cooler. He counters with his own blast, also trying to regenerate the piece of his side that's missing. Damn it, he was too focused on Yulong. He didn't realize the Saiyan came over here. As the two beams clash, Yulong joins in, and Chaozu tells Goku he can't hold this for much longer. And Goku says the same thing. He's running out of steam with Kaioken. In an act of desperation, Cooler then sends up a bunch of wires to grab onto Goku. He knows he's about to lose the beam clash, so he also sends up a swarm of metal coolers at them, stopping his own blast but forcing them to stop their blast too. Yulong tells Goku he needs to get out of here. He appreciates the help but is too dangerous. But Cooler then comes back, going right for Goku. Chaozu tries to power him up once more, giving him some speed to fly away, but Cooler stretches his arm out with metal, generating a large hand around Goku too to grab him, getting Chaozu in there as well. Yulong can sense the others coming over too, watching from a distance. Another fighter then comes in to attack Cooler. It's Gohan, blinded by his rage, seeing Yulong, Goku, and Chaozu in danger. But as Cooler holds on to the other two, he fends off Gohan, with Yulong helping him as well. But Yulong suddenly stops fighting, and he yells out to Gohan to follow him. They fly right towards the core, and Cooler can immediately see what they're trying to do. Well, this could be great for him. He could just absorb their energy. But he's not sure if the core could handle an impact like that. So of course he tries to counter them by spawning giant arms in front of them. But the two just fly around and try and fly through some others. Goku and Chaozu even break out, joining them. Chaozu barely has any power left in him, but he gives Goku an increase once more. A 1000% boost combined with Kaioken times 20, with Goku darting in front of the other two, but then slowing to match their speed. Together, the four of them fly right through the core, channeling all their energy at once to destroy it, as it's ripped clean out of Earth, with chunks of it sent flying into space. Cooler's mechanical gear starts spasming, and Yulong turns back to him and taunts him. He no longer has his crutch. Unlike Cooler, they don't rely on a piece of machinery for power like that. But Cooler says that's where he's mistaken. He doesn't rely on the Big Yeti Star. It was just a nice buff for him. And Frieza won't win this time. Cooler gathers even more energy. The space around him starts breaking, the planet below him cracking too. Yulong needs to get him away from Earth. So once more he flies into Cooler, bringing him into space. And Cooler knew this would happen. He wants to protect Earth. So this way it brings the two of them together, alone. Cooler grabs onto Yulong's face, and then turns him around, looking down at the planet, quietly telling his brother to say goodbye to Earth. With all of his power he rockets down, pummeling Yulong clean through the planet. A gaping hole with no light is left in the middle of it, absorbed by Cooler's aura. And then, Yulong watches it explode. And of course Cooler taunts him the whole way. Yulong's going to lose this fight, but even if he doesn't, he'll have nothing left. His planet is gone, his friends are gone, he has no Dragon Balls to bring them back either. And it's all because of him. Cooler used him as the weapon to break the planet. His mechanical parts spasm even more. With the core of the Big Yeti Star gone, a lot of its processing power is gone too. Very little of it is left in Cooler, and he sees Yulong's aura starting to flare up even more. After a brief moment of disbelief, he's recollected himself, now consumed by pure rage. In a brief moment, it looks like his aura is flashing to a different color, gaining a more brilliant hue, but he still is in his Jade form. He turns back at Cooler, with a completely different look on his face. The rage that consumes him, that's the face of Frieza. This is what his brother should have been like. And Cooler starts to charge one last attack. Using what little control from the Big Yeti Star he has left, as well as all the material from Earth, he swirls it all together with one hand, fighting Yulong off with the other, taking a lot of damage in the process. He then condenses all of the material, infusing his ki into it as well, creating a living black hole, fueled by his ki with the mass of Earth. It grows more and more, even ripping off some of the mechanical parts from Cooler, leaving him looking almost zombie-like. He doesn't care, anything to kill Frieza, and as he charges more of his ki into it, it begins to suck both of them in. At this rate, if it keeps growing, it'll swallow the whole multiverse. But Cooler made one mistake. By destroying Earth, it leaves Yulong completely uninhibited. He has no reason to fight with any sort of ki control now. He fights almost primally, especially looking at the pits of darkness in front of him, the black hole, Cooler in his new form, as well as the evilness right in front of him. But by sheer instinct, for some reason, he decides to stick his hand in the black hole, channeling all of his ki into it, and then crushing it. He's barely even conscious anymore, same for Cooler. But he grabs the black hole in his hands. and fueled only by his rage and adrenaline, he grabs onto Cooler's face, opening his jaw and then sticking the black hole in his mouth, channeling more of his ki into it. Earth might be gone, but by using its power and lending his own to it as well, it can make him win here. Reality starts warping around Cooler. The black hole inside of him tears him apart, especially with the fact that Yulong's ki is fueling it. Yulong then launches far back to the moon, with a green glow surrounding it. Cooler can't even tell what's going on anymore. His brain is scrambled, literally. All he can see is a brilliant green light, coming closer and closer to him. A brilliant Kamehameha, launched with the last of Yulong's power, destroying Cooler and the black hole within him. Out of exhaustion, Yulong collapses, going back into his base form. He sits up and in disbelief he takes one last look. All he sees is empty space in front of him. It's just gone. Reality starts to hit him. Shenron's gone. He thinks no one could be brought back, and even if Shenron were still here, Goku can't be revived a second time by him. Yulong sits on the moon in complete silence. There's a small meteor shower, with little pieces left of Earth. Some smaller pieces that Cooler didn't get. It looks like there is still some of Earth left, although they're destroyed not too long later, peppering the moon with more craters like buckshot. Yulong yells out, but it falls on deaf ears, hoping Beerus or Whis can at least hear. But for now, he's completely alone. He killed Cooler. He won the battle, but Cooler defeated him mentally once more, and destroyed everything he loved in the process. He thinks it's all gone for good. Beerus and Whis eventually arrive on the moon. That fight happened in such a short time span that by the time they got here, it was already over. They didn't notice it right away. And honestly, they thought Yulong had it in the bag. They didn't realize what Cooler was capable of. Of course, Beerus is going to try to help out Yulong here. Earth at least has some sort of importance to him, so he's not going to let it get destroyed like that. Whis suggests that he used the Dragon Balls on Namek. Oh yeah, he didn't even think to look for other sets of Dragon Balls. Thanks to Whis, he actually has some sort of hope. Although Whis says that's really the only help he could provide. In terms of getting to the planet, well, he's going to have to get there on his own. Yulong said that's okay. He could fly through space, and he should be able to fly fast enough. He doesn't know how long it'll take, but it shouldn't be too long. Beerus and Whis say they'll see Yulong soon. They just wanted to check in with him and give him some sort of directive. And he thanks them for their help. But then he realizes, the second they leave, he forgot to ask where Namek actually is. Thankfully, he still has one friend who can communicate with him. It's King Kai, telling him exactly what direction to go to. If he just flies straight, he'll make it right to Namek. Not like he has a spaceship anyway, so he has to rely on this. He begins his journey to that planet. Since he has to fly in a straight line, he can't make any detours, so he just continues flying straight. But amidst the flight, he gets a better glimpse of how big this universe actually is, just by seeing how big this galaxy is. He wishes he could explore other planets along the way. He never even thought of doing something like this. He's always just been on Earth. Once Earth is back and safe, he wants to travel more, through space, not Earth. He loves his planet, but look at all of this. To think Cooler terrorized a universe this grand. He should try to enjoy this new peace, especially with him being the one to bring it about. Occasionally he does get bored on Earth, so maybe this will help that. But with Earth now gone, he also knows now to not take it for granted. Eventually he ends up on Namek. And weirdly enough, he senses some familiar powers. That's weird, he doesn't know anyone here. And those powers come in a set of 3. Oh, he knows who it is. He arrives in one of the villages and the 3 Saiyans are there, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz. They spend some time looking into what could have possibly made Cooler come back, eventually thinking that it's some sort of wish orbs, and after research they heard rumors of it probably being on Namek. So they made their way to this planet, but unfortunately it was at the exact time Yulong showed up here. And the second they see him here, they're almost ready to fight, but Yulong says he's not fighting here. He's just visiting this planet, presumably for the same reason they are. Of course, they won't just give up the Dragon Balls that easily, although they haven't even gotten them yet. They're just in one of the villages that has one. So against their better judgment, they threaten Yulong to actually fight. Quickly he goes into his Jade form, just to intimidate them. Are they sure they want to fight? He just got back from killing Cooler, and he's not really in a good mood. You know what? Yeah, maybe it's better they stand down. Wait, what do you say? He got back from killing Cooler? Cooler was dead. They killed him. Oh, so it was them. He was wondering why Cooler had one robotic arm and part of his body was missing. He kind of inferred it was them, but he didn't actually have confirmation. He tells them they really need to do a better job when they kill someone because Cooler came back, and he was much stronger. To think, he's been out there all those years and the Saiyans didn't even realize, not to mention the fact that he merged with the Big Getty Star, and also ended up destroying Earth. Yulong's the only survivor. They end up staying out of Yulong's way, but they follow him around questioning him. They can easily tell what he's trying to wish for. He eventually does collect all the Dragon Balls because the Namekians here are willing to help him. First of all, he prevented the Saiyans from getting the Dragon Balls, who probably would have used deadly force if they couldn't get them right away. But also, they view Yulong as worthy, especially because of the wish he's trying to make. Although there is an issue, he doesn't really know what he's supposed to wish for. He wants to revive everyone, but to do that he'll have to wish for Earth back first, so will he have to make 2 trips here? And that would mean he has to wait another year for that. But eventually he's brought to the Elder Mori, and he learns that Purunga actually grants 3 wishes, although usually he can only revive 1 person at a time. But Mori did make some recent upgrades, realizing that was a shortcoming of the Dragon Balls and mainly to test what he's capable of. So Yulong could actually bring everything back with 2 wishes. Also, part of the reason he made a better set is because he was keeping up with a lot of the current events, monitoring things out in space, watching out of curiosity. He learned of some monster named Majin Buu being revived temporarily. He knew some of Cooler's army was out there. And even all the way out here, he could sense Cooler's power at points. He even just sensed the fight between Cooler and Yulong. That's how explosive it was. The power could be sensed out here. So it looks like he was right in doing that. Yulong wishes for Earth to be restored and for everyone to be revived. But there's one wish left, and the Saiyans are ready to take it. Thankfully, the Namekians won't translate for them. Although Yulong also wants to use the wish up just so they don't have the chance of using it. So Yulong whispers to the translator, and Purunga disappears. That was their last wish. He says they don't need any more. And he says he'll also escort the Saiyans off this planet to make sure they don't cause trouble. They're free to come to Earth if they want, but they can't stay here. Of course, this angers them, but he explains why he did it. If they really want to fight about it, they can. Or they could just leave peacefully. And knowing Yulong can and will kill them if he needs to, they kinda just accept it. Clearly he isn't Frieza. If he were as cruel as Cooler, then he would have just killed him on the spot. But he's very easygoing, almost to a fault. Yulong's elated that the wishes worked, and he's reunited with everyone. Thankfully they weren't dead for too long. Still, it was pretty strange. The Saiyans end up staying on Earth, but if they want to leave, they can. They could decide. He and Goku go back to Whis to train. But Yulong gets curious about other training. As time passes, things are going really well for him, and he's seeing some great development, but he wonders what else is out there. Cooler alluded to getting some great things during training, and he wonders where Cooler went for that. He mentions to Whis that Cooler had some sort of teleportation technique. Whis says it's probably from Yardrat. So, out of curiosity, Yulong goes there. Learning that Cooler actually visited this planet. He didn't destroy them, but used the Big Getty Star to copy their techniques. So, he didn't necessarily train here, rather just copy them. But Yulong takes some time here to learn that, which means he learned spirit control, teleportation, healing, size manipulation, cloning himself. That'll be so great in fights. Especially because the Tournament of Power comes up not too long after. We're kind of breezing through right now because this arc also wouldn't really amount to much. It's pretty clear that Universe 7 would end up winning. But for the record, their team would probably be Yulong, Goku, Tenshinhan, Krillin, Chaozu, Gohan, Videl, Mr. Satan, Vegeta, and then Raditz and Nappa would have to do rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets in. Obviously, they jump at the opportunity for this. And Raditz wins rock, paper, scissors, only to be the first elimination of the entire tournament. And Vegeta laughs at it. What a dumbass. The Saiyans are still kind of crass to be around, but they ended up joining this because Yulong was curious of what they're capable of. And obviously they wouldn't want to pass up the opportunity to fight. So they went along with it, and at least this established a connection between them somewhat. They are still very much secluded and mainly hang around themselves, even with the fact that Raditz has a brother on Earth. Following the tournament, there's no Broly. But Yulong is then visited by Maris, who warns him about Moro, a guy who steals power through magic. Huh. It's weird because he just learned Force Spirit Fission, which apparently is perfect for this, even though he could barely use it anywhere else. He thanks Cooler for that. He wouldn't have had the idea to go to Yardrat if it weren't for him teleporting in front of him. Maybe his brother did do something good, because using this, he's able to defeat Moro really easily. Besides, Namek helped him so much before that when he sees Moro's heading to Namek, he's gonna help without question. Not like he would have said no anyways. And just like he promised to himself, he started taking short trips out in space, exploring the universe more and more. He'll spend a few days on each civilized planet and just hop around others. He really has no destination in mind. Although one day he ends up on Serial. He hears this place has some pretty nice scenery. Weirdly enough, the civilization here is really small. As in, they're small people, but also, it's a small colony. But one of the people there really stands out. Among all the aliens, there's one guy that looks almost human. A man with green hair and two different colored eyes. As Yulong's walking around the city, the two make eye contact, and Yulong just smiles at him. Just a random stranger that he doesn't know. But the man immediately runs up to him, looking perplexed and almost angry in a way. This is Granola, and the reason he ran up to Yulong is because he looks like Cooler, and he heard rumors of Cooler having a brother. And especially with him being here, especially after Cooler was just defeated again a few years ago, he suspects Frieza's up to something. But he's not Frieza, he's Yulong. Granola almost ends up fighting him, but Yulong calms him down. He's not like his brother at all. He's just here on a vacation. He didn't even know about this planet until now. He ends up spending some time on this planet and learns more about Granola, as well as the history of this planet. Even meeting Monaido. Strangely enough, the only reason these two are alive is because a Saiyan saved them a while ago. Some guy named Bardock. Weird. Some Saiyans are still alive on Earth, but they're good people. Well, Goku is. He doesn't really mention the other three because it seems to be a sore spot for Granola. They must be a rarity amongst Saiyans. Of course, not even realizing who Bardock is. But there's a knock at Monaido's door. The Heaters are here and they aren't happy. They have been watching Granola and they see that Frieza's here. Of course they'd know about him because they know about Cooler and he was the main threat to them. Cooler's been gone for a while, so it's been nice for them. A lot of people knew Cooler came back, but they also knew the Saiyans killed him, which is also why Granola didn't immediately get mad when he said he was friends with some Saiyans. That very minutely changed his view on the Saiyans. Anyways, everyone thought Cooler died due to them. They didn't know he came back from the Big Getty Star. So for the past few years, the Heaters have been living a good life, the one that they had before Cooler was revived. And they assume Frieza's here to take the spot again. And this doesn't really sit right with Yulong. These guys worked for Cooler, Well, not really, but still, they had connections to him, and they're planet brokers. They're space pirates. Immediately he has a bad view of them, but he's not going to kill them right away, until they try and kill him, as well as Granola for associating with him. Yulong tells them they really don't want to do this, but now seeing his new friend in danger, he quickly powers up and gets rid of them, leaving Granola flabbergasted seeing him defeat the Heater so easily. He just wanted to enjoy his vacation and spend some peaceful time here with his new friend on planet Cereal. He told them it wouldn't be a good idea to fight, but they didn't listen. Another loose end tied up that he didn't even know about. There's another passage of time. Someone wants to avenge the Red Ribbon Army. It's Magenta. He starts looking at everything he can, but amidst his digging he eventually finds Jiro's lab. And he has a project there that's about to awaken. So he throws some money at his scientist that he has already, not even needing Dr. Hedo. And they unleash Cell, with him finally awakening, albeit imperfect, but powerful thanks to Yulong. All of the data from the previous androids was sent to him. Plus, the drones have continued spying up until the same time Yulong left to fight Buu. By then they realized they had more than enough data. Buu never came here, and Earth was so peaceful that the drones decided to stop getting DNA. Besides, they had more than enough by that point. The only reason they got so much is because of how strong Yulong was. However, that's just for DNA. For actual data, they kept watching until Cooler came back. It's not like they would have gotten any extra DNA anyways. Unfortunately for them, that means no Beerus and Whis DNA. The supercomputer really wanted to combine the Big Getty Star with Cell, but that was mechanical, and the drones couldn't harvest that. But Magenta kinda screwed himself by awakening Cell because Cell then kills Magenta and threatens everyone at the lab. They need to reverse engineer what Jiro was working on. He was supposed to absorb androids 13, 14, and 15, or at least the merged android 13. But with them gone, he can't become perfect. He's not loyal to them, or anyone for that matter. And while they work on that, he's gonna go explore for a bit. Sure, he wants to become perfect, but with all the power he has now, he's probably ready to fight. He's itching for it. This first leads him to Kame House. Once again, Chaozu's wondering why every threat shows up here. This secluded place is supposed to be peaceful. Cell says he's here because he didn't really know where else to go. He just knows the androids went here and found everyone else at one time, so that's what he's doing. He'll probably kill and eat these guys later, but for now he needs them to bring everyone else here. The first people to show up are Gohan, Videl, and Mr. Satan, with Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz showing up not too long after. Roshi wonders why Chaozu called them, and it's because they're powerful. Maybe they can help here. Of course, the Saiyans really want to do their own thing and just fight Cell one-on-one instead of fighting smart. But thanks to this, they learn that Cell actually has some interesting powers. He has the DNA of all the Ginyu Force members, which doesn't really amount to much besides the fact that he has Ginyu's DNA, and he has Goldo's DNA. But he's not going to use Ginyu's power to swap bodies because he's in a body that's going to be perfect soon enough. Why would he need to do that? Although the time stopping really helps, and he's able to absorb power from pretty much everyone here, starting with the Saiyans and then going after Gohan, Videl, and Mr. Satan. But before they're attacked, help arrives. Goku and Yulong appear, with Yulong having teleported both of them here. Another guy absorbing power? Well, for Spirit Vision again. With a single punch he returns all of the energy to everyone that Cell stole it from. But still, he's powerful even without that. You know what? He'll let Goku take this fight. But Yulong has a very different outlook on fighting and really wants the fight to end quick, especially with how dangerous this guy is. So he tells Goku not to play around. Use his full power. This might be a good test for that. Especially after everyone else tells him that Cell could stop time. Presumably for a while too. They need to prevent him from even doing that. So Goku immediately jumps to his most powerful form, Ultra Instinct. Obviously after all this time he has this. Especially with such a great teacher and such a great training partner. This makes the fight really easy for him. And he one-shots Cell. What he doesn't realize is Cell can come back pretty easily from pretty much nothing. So Cell waits for the right moment, regenerates, and then stops time. He didn't really want to use this, but he doesn't have a choice. He then swaps bodies with Goku. And thanks to all his great data, as well as being part Goku in general, he adjusts to the body really quickly. Oh, well, Yulong didn't expect this. This could actually be an issue. As far as he knows, Force Spirit Vision only works on absorption and merging. He's been trying to perfect his spirit abilities to go beyond that and maybe just steal energy in general. Even just the innate energy of opponents. But he doesn't know if it'll work on something like this. Does body swapping qualify as part of this? Cell, or rather Goku, then yells out to him. He tells Yulong not to worry. He's going to try and figure out what Cell did and just copy that on Cell again. He just needs to weaken Cell and hold him in place, which is much easier said than done. But for Yulong this should not be a problem. Plus, he gets to use his own newest power. Obviously Goku's Ultra Instinct is great, but he didn't let Goku get ahead. He has the same exact thing, as he powers up not into his Jade form, but into something brand new. A silver form with a slight tint to it. This is what he calls his Pearl form, once more based on his namesake and Journey to the West. Fun fact, pearls can also be golden or black apparently, so this is even more fitting because this is a replacement for his black form essentially. Well, sort of. Not only is this his peak form, but it also has the essence of Ultra Instinct in it. It's not simply his Ultra Instinct form, it's more than that. But it does all the same things Goku's Ultra Instinct does. Plus, unlike Goku, he could fully utilize its range of emotions in this form. He has complete control over it. Much more advanced than Goku, which is why it's combined with this form. And he's more than glad to test it on some new target. Although he can't kill this target, so he has to be kind of careful, but Goku says it's fine. He could beat up on Goku's body as much as he wants, as long as he doesn't kill it. He could use that spirit control thing to heal him later. Oh yeah, that is true. So he tells Cell sorry as he starts to go all out. First, he starts by throwing blast everywhere. Vegeta's watching nearby. That's his technique. Actually, no, it's more like Piccolo's technique. But Piccolo's not in the story, so it's original. Telekinetically, he lifts Cell up, throwing him across the ocean so he's far away from Kame House, with all the blasts in the air following him too. He then swipes his hands together and all the blasts converge on him. A dividend grenade, which is pretty much his Hellzone grenade. Cell then starts unleashing attacks on him. Again, he has really good control over Goku's body, so he could use pretty much anything Goku can. So Yulong simply creates blades on his arm, cutting through all the blasts thrown his way. This is another one of his new attacks, Stock Split, allowing him to be somewhat of a sword fighter. Well, looks like Cell needs to put more power into these attacks. He's also sort of losing control of Ultra Instinct. Despite being part Goku and having great knowledge of Goku as well, he can't really maintain this to its fullest. So he charges all of his power into a Kamehameha, telling Yulong he'd love to see him cut through this. He actually doesn't even need to. Next is a more risky move he's been working on, sort of based on what he did against Cooler when he stole his black hole attack. In hindsight, he realized it would have been really cool to name this against Cooler, but he wasn't really in the mood at the time. He creates a small barrier of ki in front of him, trapping the attack from Cell. And then with all of his focus, he gets complete control of the attack, then adding some of his own power to it, then splitting the attack in half, sending half of it back towards Cell, and keeping the other half to throw at him again just in case he needs to. He calls this attack Arbitrage. Half the Kamehameha returns to Cell, and it does a lot of damage, but not enough to kill him because obviously Yulong doesn't want to do that. But Yulong then takes the remaining ki from the attack and charges it even further. It starts swirling around in his hand, turning into a reddish color. And quickly, he launches it up into the sky. Goku's also nearby now, and he tries to use what Cell used against him, but can't really do it. So Yulong tries to help, using Force Spirit Fission to give a nice extra push. And with both of them trying together, they force it to revert, swapping the bodies back to normal, with Cell back in his original body once more. Out of desperation, he tries to stop time, which works, but then he sees a flurry of blasts from above coming down at him, the blast that Yulong just sent up. They're an ominous red color, and they're moving really fast towards him. But even with time stopped, those blasts are still moving. How powerful are they? They're breaking through time. They hit Cell head on and cause him to release his breath, which means he releases the time stop. He was hit by Yulong's ultimate attack, Market Crash. Yulong charges more power into it, and then the blast stops scattering around. They become more and more condensed, focused on one spot. He then dashes into the Hellfire Blast, uppercutting Cell with so much power that his head is knocked clean off. Obviously he's still alive, but this prevents him from stopping time for a bit, with his headless body being bombarded by lasers. Yulong launches a green blast upwards, Market Rally. Combined with the Market Crash, this catches Cell between the blast and finishes him off, destroying him for good. Yulong then quickly heals Goku, and Goku says those new moves are awesome. He was inspired by his hobby to make a new moveset, naming it all after investing terms. Speaking of investing, he's going to be investing way more into his students so they can learn cool stuff like that next. And you know, if Goku doesn't continue putting in work like he is, his students will pass Goku someday. Not only with Yulong acting as a ceiling for Goku, but with Yulong's students acting as a floor for Goku. And Goku accepts it. He's not going to let that happen. Besides, now with Ultra Instinct, he's confident he'll catch up to Yulong eventually. And Yulong says he'd love to see that. But only time will tell. And with that, we end off this story here. What do you guys think about the finale and the story as a whole? Leave your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys think. As usual, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps out the channel and shows me you want to see more videos like this. Anyways, thank you all for watching, thanks for supporting the scenario all the way through, and I'll see you all in my next video.